Ontario's COVID-19 vaccine plan is helping to stop the spread and save lives. Your turn is coming soon. Learn more about Ontario's vaccine plan, paid for by the Government of Ontario.
You got it, John. You got it, bud. Is the stream's choppy? Is the stream choppy? It's 100% because I'm uploading a video. Is the audio bad? Is the audio choppy?
Where can I write it? On my knee. I need a pen. I have it. Back up. I'm just giving her a pen, ma'am. I'm doing it. You're doing your job, okay?
Because if the audio is still good, then I might just let it go. Okay, so it's just the video. I think I'll let that happen because I'm almost like it's just like almost done. I just got a late everything today, and so I'm just getting my daily video up right now, and yeah. Hopefully the choppy video won't chase everybody away right off the hop. Yeah, the big news, as far as I'm concerned, is this the Lamport Stadium clearing, right? Like they're going into the Lamport Stadium and they're clearing the encampments. And lots of citizens are showing up in order to try and protect. People are being arrested. And like my position is like what are these people gonna do? Like you've got people who are homeless obviously, and they're like living in these tent structures and and they're trying to find solidarity with one another, with other people who are homeless, who have been evicted from their houses. They've got nowhere else to go, obviously. They wouldn't be living here if they had somewhere to go. And like what are they supposed to do? Right? So what are the police going to do? They're going to clear these encampments. They're going to clear these tents, and where are these people going to go? Right? Like what's the end game here for these people? And yeah, clearing encampments. They violate city bylaws because, and this is really what's important to remember, right? Like, homelessness isn't illegal. Yeah, just set them back further. That's exactly right, Wigwith. Sorry about the choppy stream. It's going to resolve in 10 minutes. Maybe a little sooner than that. I just got a little late uploading my 15-minute video, and I don't want to stop it. But yeah, like how they got like this little tiny tent, you know, and there's and maybe there's like a handful of them or a bunch of them, and like everything I'm seeing is showing that like these, they're being called like tent cities, but I'm just seeing like a smattering. Like I'm just seeing people, like this isn't like I mean, it is a crisis. Obviously it's a crisis, but like homelessness is a crisis, right? Homelessness is a crisis. It's absolutely a crisis. And instead of saying, interesting, weird how there's no bylaws saying homelessness is a crime, right? Like, but I don't mean like the homeless should be criminalized. I mean that the act of allowing someone to be homeless isn't a crime, right? Weird how that works, eh? That we've created a society in which it's perfectly acceptable to see someone homeless, and then it's perfectly acceptable to say, oh, that homeless person is breaking our bylaws, so let's clear them out. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like, that's, talk about absolute brutality. And it's like, and what, we don't have any spaces for these people? We don't have literally any space in the city. There's no space in the city of Toronto where we can put these people. There's nothing, right? I just don't believe it. Like, and like, honestly, I feel like the solution that these people have come up with, which is to have a tent and to like pitch a tent in a park area, right? Like, well, if the city is not going to do anything about it, if the city's not going to provide housing, if the city's not going to actually try to protect anybody, then this is an adequate solution, isn't it? Right? Like, if the issue is that we can't have any space for these people, well, then this is a fairly, in fact, we should be like setting up amenities for these people. Like, if the issue is that we don't have space, because it's literally the only issue I can even contemplate and think that would actually be legitimate, that like we legit don't have any space, which of course we have space. Of course we have tons of space. We just don't want to confront capital, right? That's really what it comes down to. We just don't want to confront capital. And what this is really showing more than anything, if you ask me, is John Tory's cowardice, right? That John Tory has been, for the most part, a kind of moderate Manila kind of leader, right? Like he's not a radical, but that's true on either side, right? Like he's not. There's a reasonableness to the way that he sees things, I have always found, but this situation really reveals his like just overt, overwhelming cowardice. Like, there's solutions to this, right? There's housing, there's places these people could go, right? Like, we could solve this problem. It's just, we just don't want to. We're just not interested in it. And so and so you end up, several people at the site accepted the city's offer, oh, here we go, on Wednesday to shift to a hotel, but we're only allowed to bring 2 bags belongings with them. Oh, okay. So you are allowed to go to a hotel as long as you abandon everything you own. Right? Hey, Ruth. Sorry about the choppy stream, Ruth. It's going to resolve itself, maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes. I'm just uploading one of my videos. That's what's causing the problem. So as long as you abandon everything you own, right? Like, you can go to a hotel. So you got to pick among the stuff that you have. You've got to pick what you consider meaningful. And like, is this hotel situation, like, that's not going to last forever. So you're telling people to abandon all of their stuff, right? And there are also rules they need to adhere to at the hotel, which is the deal breaker for some. What are the rules? Like, what are the rules? Is there a curfew? Maybe they have to work. Like, I don't know. Like, what are these rules? Because maybe these rules themselves are just asinine. 100 activists showed up at the site, formed a ring around the tents, yeah. Who lived at the encampment last year before finding a rare rent-geared-to-income apartment. Showed up in support. They're criminalizing people, yeah. Yeah, it's, and this all flows into the, like, opening up narrative, right? Like, that we need to be opening back up. Like, which has always been, like, we need to sell ourselves back to capitalists, right? We need to sell ourselves back to capitalists. And if we have these tent cities, right? If we have these places where people live, and then on top of that, you also do have the narrative of, like, there are lots of people who I think are just starting to be like, well, no, I think I would rather, like, live on in a tent in a park than have to deal with this capitalist fiasco, right? Yeah, Toronto Mayor John Tory said the encampments won't be around much longer. The city staff will continue to try to persuade people to move inside. Yeah. And, like, don't get me wrong, like, encampments like this, he is correct. Like, they are unsafe, unhealthy, and illegal in public parks. Like, certainly they're illegal. Homelessness has been criminalized in this city. Like, if you're homeless, you're the criminal. Certainly it has nothing to do with the system that rendered you homeless. It has everything to do with you as an individual. But, like, let's be genuine about these tent city situations. They are unsafe. Like, of course they're unsafe. They're populated by humans, right? Like, of course they're unsafe. But we're not actually coming up with solutions for these people, right? And it's so funny, for CTV News, just right below, hatred has no place in the city, as you're clearing out encampments. Like, as you're clearing out, you know, people's way of life and telling them that they have to throw out, if they want to have any, support whatsoever, right? If you're going to move them into a hotel, but they got to throw away all their stuff, right? Those are the rules. You're allowed to have shelter if you throw away everything you own. 2 bags of belongings, like. So you're probably going to end up throwing away your tent, right? Like, that's part of the shtick. You got to throw away your tent, so that when we throw you out of these hotels, which we will do, because homelessness is a crime, and we're not actually going to give support to anybody. You know, we're gonna throw you out back out onto the street eventually, and you'll have less stuff. Absolutely vicious. Absolutely vicious. Come on, stream. You can do it. Okay. Hopefully this is still watchable, guys. I mean, there's 6 of you here, so again, sorry about the choppiness. I'm just uploading one of my videos. It'll be over very soon, and then we'll get back to not so choppy. I won't play any videos while we're doing this time until it clears up. So this is something I'm going to be talking about on my shorter videos for sure. Like, man, what an absolutely, like, barbaric, and, like, it completely flows in to, yeah, and but that's just it. It's all temporary, right? Like, it's all temporary. You can, like, you could put people up in a mansion if you wanted to, but if you tell them it's only for a month, right? Like, go get a job, right? Go sell yourselves to capitalists in the middle of a depression, right? Like, it's not a solution. And, like, moving them into a hotel and, like a conference center, like, you're explicitly saying to them, this is temporary, that this is not a permanent solution, that the emergency that you are facing is not going to be dealt with in systemic ways. We're not going to confront capital. We're not going to requisition permanent spaces for you, right? We're just going to find spaces that can't be used right now, you know, and of course we're certainly not going to, like, find spaces where there's, like, much by way of safety in a permanent way. Like, part of the thing about like an apartment building is that you have, like, superintendents, like, you have people who are there, you have systems that are in place to see to the, like, privacy and safety of the people who live there, right? That's not necessarily true in a hotel. Like, that's not necessarily true in like a conference center, and they're certainly not going to keep paying to keep people there. So it's just becoming like abominable. Yeah, homelessness is one of the things that upsets me the most about wage inequality. And John, it's built in. It's on purpose, right? The capitalists are happy to keep people homeless. They want people to be homeless. It drives wages down. Having homeless people drives wages down, right? Because it's an incentive to the working class to actually keep working for the shitty wages with the no benefit jobs and the terrible work conditions, right? Because they know that if they don't, that there's these homeless people around. And clearly our society is not doing anything about them. Clearly our society is happy to abandon people because you can see them. You can see them on the streets. You can bear witness to them. Yeah, and there were, of course, outbreaks of COVID which again is like why homelessness is such a bad idea. Like why it's such a horrible idea to allow homelessness to exist in your society. And this is how we need to be talking about it, right? It's not like this unfortunate, oh, they slipped through the cracks. It's a systemic, intentional, built-in part of our system. If we didn't want homeless people to be on the streets, like if we didn't want there to be homeless people, we would reform the system to disallow homelessness, right? We would create a method to eliminate even the possibility of homelessness. But the reality is that we want there to be homeless people. Homeless people are an important part of the capitalist system because they scare the shit out of the working class, right? That's the reason homeless people exist. How many people are one paycheck from homelessness? You know, before the pandemic, there were reports coming out saying that people were 50% of the society, 50% of the society were one paycheck away from going insolvent, right? Like that's an enormous number. And so the homeless that are coming out and creating these, like that's an inevitability. It's structurally built into the system. Ontario Works Financial Assistance, yeah, Ontario's welfare program only pays $733 a month. Yeah, right? Because it was erected in like 1984 or whatever, right? And they probably funded it thinking like, well, in 1984, like this is going to help people with a good deal of their rent, and maybe they're living with a roommate and all that kind of stuff, and so they can, you know, and then they've never looked at it again. And then inflation hit, and now like average rent is like $1,200 a month. So it's like. And they're not interested in redressing that because, again, homelessness is part of the system. It's structural. Neoliberal capitalists like homeless. They like there to be homeless people. It's part of the system. There are tons of empty buildings that could be used to make studios for their stuff. Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of this kind of stuff. That is about as much as you get in Alberta. Works employment, you can apply for a bus pass for an extra $80, so about $800 total. Yeah. Like, and it's just not enough. Like, because, again, these systems of welfare, these welfare systems were put in place before the neoliberal period, right? That the neoliberal sociopaths who have taken over our society and who are actively attempting to turn us into Palestine, and I'm not being hyperbolic about that. Like, these tent encampments and these clearings are part of that same narrative, right? And then if enough people showed up and they had enough force so the police couldn't clear them out, yeah, they'll just fucking aerial bombard these places. Of course they will. And so back when we actually had a soul, back when there was actually like a revolutionary spirit and a conscience in this country, in the 60s and 70s, they make these welfare systems and they set it at like $800. So it's like $800 in the 70s, like good, like you can live on that for sure, you can. But then they just ignored it completely, and then the neoliberal sociopaths came in, and welfare gets denigrated. People get called welfare queens. Institutions like Fox News are legally allowed to misinform and lie to the populace, as fought in court, right? Like. And so we just lost our conscience as a people. Like we have no conscience. We are a sociopathic culture. And this kind of thing where we're clearing out these encampments, like, yeah, we've just lost our ability to be rational and moral completely. We're not even interested. You were basically in severe poverty under $1,000 a month, and government like, cool. Yeah, exactly. John, if you're homeless, you can't get a check to get a room because you have no address. There are systems in place so that you can get that. Like you can go to a government office. Of course, I don't have all this information in front of me, and they'll treat that like your mailing address, like this. So that I mean, it's not ideal, obviously, but there is a way to alleviate that, so that cycle does break. Cannot refuse to give you assistance just because you do not have a permanent address, yet even if you do not have an address, you can apply. Yeah, exactly what John is saying here. They deny you housing allowance. Yeah, what John is saying here in the chat is correct, Ruth. That like that cycle of not having an address and all that, like that was there are methods to step around that, which of course were set up in like the 60s and 70s, and since then we've completely ignored them. Evening, everyone. Hope you're having a kicker's evening. Hey, Demand Better, how you doing, bud? Hopefully the stream is going to even out here soon. Oh, it's like literally like right at the tippy point, and I'll be able to start showing some more. We're just talking about the clearing of the Lamport Stadium encampment here, and it's creating a larger conversation about homelessness and the human crime of homelessness. Like, homelessness is like a brutal, it shouldn't exist. It just shouldn't exist. And this ties in my view, completely to the Palestinian conflict, right? Like, I take a look at the Palestinian conflict, and I really do think like this is how they're gonna treat us, right? Like, this is their plan for us, and you're seeing like glimmers of it in these encampment clearings, right? And and like Netanyahu determined to continue Gaza bombardment. Like, this is, and like Israeli PM defies call by U.S. President Joe Biden for significant de-escalation in Gaza today on the path to the truth is because, and Biden's call for de-escalation is like complete just media farcery. Like, it's total just like Joe Biden saying like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go say to my own people that we need to de-escalate. But when he goes to talk to Netanyahu, like, clear this place out. Let's go. Like, let's get it done, right? And obviously that's the case. If the United States wanted Israel to cease bombing Gaza, genuinely, they would, right? It would be as easy as saying we're just going to stop funding this, right? The United States gives Israel like $4 billion a year, right, to do this kind of stuff, right? Like, Israel's military forces have been built up because of the United States. $4 billion annual donation to the Israeli military. And if Joe Biden was serious about de-escalating in Gaza or any of that kind of shit, he would just be like, we're just going to stop funding you. Netanyahu would stop bombing then. Right? Netanyahu would be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to stop bombing. I'm not going to face my own people as we lose a $4 billion donation every year. Right? Like, so Joe Biden's not serious. He's just looking at his own cameras and his own people and being like, we're calling for de-escalation. And then he goes over to Netanyahu and is like, keep bombing that place. Don't listen to what I say in the media. Who gives a fuck about that? So it's a total farce. Yeah, it's just, no, that's not what I want. And they're just going to keep doing it, and this is going to be like a decades-long, let's see. Ontario works, though I agree, where you are can mean how friendly your worker is and whether they're happy in denying you, yeah. That's really the truth, John. Like, there's this interesting phenomenon that happens inside of humans, right? That if you have like even a small amount of power, you'll abuse that power. You'll twist that power to your own kind of thing. So if you're one of these people working in these working in these bureaucratic situations, you're going to do everything you can to sort of dominate and control those people. Okay, please check the video resolution. Okay, hold on. Okay, has the stream evened out? Anybody? Stream's evening out. Looks like the stream's evening out. Okay, okay. Sorry about that, guys. Many apologies. I just didn't get my act together today to be able to do things. Trudeau is so cozy with all the things happening in China, Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Well, yeah, and it's 100% because, like, we are the lackeys of the United States. We don't have another option. Like, our foreign policy really is, like, if the United States is attacking someone else, they're not attacking us. That's really what it is. And we're an imperial power ourselves, and we are interested in, we're attacking the First Nations people here in Canada. We're definitely selling weapons to Saudi Arabia and Israel and all of this. So yeah, we're definitely cozy with what's going on with the United States. And the question is, would we be acting in this way if not for the United States, right? Like, if the United States was talking a more, like, a calmer game, would we also be talking a calmer game? And, like, they're this big sociopathic giant that's to our south. So, like, what are we supposed to do about it? I think workers at OW get a bonus every time they say no to somebody. Oh, that's dark, dude. That's dark, but I love it. It's, it does seem that way, eh? It does seem that way. I'm currently on OW. I had one nice worker and one complete nightmare who I requested to be removed from my file. Yeah, like, there are people who are just gonna, like, everything does need to be done by the book, right? And the difference is that some workers are going to help you find the way through the book, right? They're going to interpret the book for you. They're going to give you what needs to happen. And some workers are just going to throw the book at you and tell you to deal with it, right? And then when you come and you've done it wrong, because of course you've done it wrong because it's not very comprehensive, then they're going to tell you to start over, right? So some are going to guide you through it because they have the know-how and the desire to guide you through it. And some are just going to be like, they've positioned themselves as an arbiter or a judge, right? Because they've allowed the power of the petty power that they have over you to corrupt them. And good for you for requesting them to be removed from your file. I would think that if people started to, like, if a person got requested to be removed from a file, like, often enough, you would think that there would be, like, a retraining or some kind of thing. He was raised with them growing up. How many had dinner with his dad at their house? I don't think I understand your comment, Ruth. So, the reason why the Lamport clearing and the reason why I'm paying such close attention to it is because it is glimmers of this, like, this is how these neoliberals are going to treat us, right? This is how they are going to treat us. And it is going to get there if we allow it. And the culture can go in this direction, and the culture can twist itself to believe that the homeless should be treated this way, that the people who have been abandoned by the capitalist system should be treated this way. Like, these two things are linked in our consciousness, and so I need to bring attention to it. Oh, hey, and while I've got you guys, how many are on here right now? Oh, come on. I've lost everything. I've lost everything. Oh, no. Oh, no. Stream status, good. I don't know how many people are on. Oh, that's why. 7. So, here's a link. Emailyourofficial.com. Canada needs to do more. I wonder, am I allowed to put stuff in here? I'm the dude. Am I allowed to do this? Does this actually show up? Did that link actually go in, guys? Go to this link right now. If you can see it, go to this link right now, and it's an email. Canada needs to do more to stop the violence and eviction of Palestinians. You just put in your name, your address, your postal code. The email subject's already there. The email body is already there. And then you send it, and it's going to send to a whole bunch of representatives, right? Aaron O'Toole, Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh. And then once your postal code is in, it'll send to your local representative as well. And, Trudeau is cozy with these people because chances are his dad had them over for dinner. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Well, and that's just the truth generally, Ruth, is that, like, the Liberals' position is that they just want to have brunch with these guys, right? They're just trying to make nice. Like, they're just, they want it, they don't want their lives to be harder, right? And they don't want there to be tension or stress in their own life. And so it's just easier to, like, go to brunch with these maniacs and you know, have a general conversation about what's going on and all this, and just kind of pat each other on the back and jerk each other off, right? So yeah, I've sent this email already. I recommend everybody else send it. It really is just like call for the permanent suspension and expulsion of Palestinian families from their home, right? Work with allies, condemn the ongoing Israeli assault on civilian targets, implement immediate stop of arms sales, commit immediate humanitarian aid to the residents of Gaza. And this kind of stuff is going to be like a decades long. It is going to be like apartheid South Africa, right? Like, that didn't get resolved in short order. And there is a lot, I think I just saw, this time is different, Gaza journalists on Israeli bombardment, and I think the populace's perspective of this event is different than it has been in the past. Thanks, Ruth. That's beautiful. Thank you. And so I'm going to clear these out. Ugh. And I'll be talking about the Lamport Stadium clearing in tomorrow's video. Today's video was about Trudeau has finally, he's declared plastics as toxic, which is good. Like, that's good. But boy, do I wish that had happened 20 years ago. Like, that to me is just like the beginning of the conversation. And what it does do is it makes disposable plastics, like those disposable forks and like disposable straws, it makes them no longer sellable because they're considered toxic now. And which is good. Like, the idea, it's just insane to me. The more I think about it, the more it's like, this is a clear example of free market capitalism completely failing, right? That they took a non-renewable resource, which is oil, right? Extract it from the ground, right? Create like a good with it, like plastic, right? And what do they do with it? They create disposable spoons so that some 2-year-old at a picnic can like eat from a little plastic, which is also disposable, that has like applesauce in it or whatever, so they can eat it and then take it and throw it in the bin and it goes and sits in some landfill somewhere. Like, that's insane. Like, that's insanity. It's literally just like, we are harvesting the bones of our ancestors, which is what oil is, and in this necromantic ritual, right, forging items for the convenience of some mom somewhere who doesn't want to have to bring a metal spoon and then have to bring a metal spoon home. Like, that's the insanity of it. That, like, instead of telling these people, no, you have to have a metal spoon. No, you have to have, like, a permanent container to put stuff in, right? That you have to bring and then bring home. Like, you brought the stuff there anyway, right? You brought it with you anyway. You just don't want to turn around and bring it home and clean it. Like, and for the convenience of that, we're going to rip the earth up and harvest the bones of our ancestors. Free market capitalism, it definitely works. It's definitely not a complete and total failure. I kind of blocked some family members because they sent me stuff about Israel that disgusts me and I don't want to start a fight. Yeah, it is. Honestly, we are starting to get to this point. Like, we are starting to get to this point in the dialectic where it's like, unfortunately, we are going to have to start cutting people out of our lives, right? Like, or we're at least going to have to make it clear that, like, this position isn't acceptable. Like, I know people who I have definitely, like, I don't contact them any longer. I don't pay attention to them any longer because they genuinely believe that poor people are at fault for their own poverty, right? And I've talked to them about it, and their position won't alter, right? They refuse to humanize people. They see these people as dirty or dingy, and I'm just like, I don't think we can hang out, dude. I don't think we can hang out. Yeah, do you remember wood and paper products like straws, spoon, paddles, forks? Like, yeah, like what's wrong with like wood and paper, or like what's wrong with bringing like a metal cup? Bring a metal cup. Bring a metal spoon. Like, what? These things exist. There's a lot of them. Like, it's just nuts. It's just gotten nuts. So Thomas Piketty has actually come out with a really comprehensive, and if you don't know who Thomas Piketty is, Thomas Piketty made a book called Capital in the 20th century, 20th or 21st century, and it's like a comprehensive economics book made by a French economist, and he really is saying like neoliberal economics doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And his book is very straightforward about this, about the reasons why. It's a very thick book, and of course very dry, but an important book that really is, in my view, like the end of neoliberalism as a credible economic system. It just doesn't function. And now he's coming out and saying like, hey, not only do we need a basic income, right? Like, proposals are springing up everywhere: basic income, job guarantee, inheritance for all. He's saying these proposals are complementary and not substitutable, right? He's saying that we need to do all of them. In the long run, they must all be implemented in stages and in this order. And he says you've got to start with basic income, right? You start with the basic income, and this is actually how I view this, which is why I'm really promoting. Well, and Thomas Piketty, of course, is he's a PhD scholar who's doing like legitimate economics work. He's not a propagandist for neoliberal capitalism, right? Like, and so that by itself means that his opinion needs to be taken seriously. And like, and what I've been saying all the time, you start with a basic income and then start moving in that direction, right? So you start with a basic income, and various forms of minimum income exist in most countries, but with many shortcomings, right? We need to extend access to them to younger people and students, especially without a fixed or bank account, who often face insurmountable obstacles. It's also essential to extend basic income to include low-paid workers, right? Yeah. Like, we are just going to have to admit that we have to subsidize life, right? Like, that's what a basic income is fundamentally saying, right? It's fundamentally saying that we need to subsidize life and living, right? That the system that we've erected and the system that exists is a system of death. It's a death cult that is insistent that we have to like plunge ourselves towards death as fast as possible and just amuse ourselves while we're doing it. Whereas something like a basic income set, it is a subsidy for life. It is an admission that if we want to have complex systems in our society, everyone needs to be a part of it, or else the system itself will die. And the system of capital is designed to kill itself. It's designed to die. And so a basic income is super, super important. And and then he moves into job guarantee, set of rights associated with the most extensive social state. Yeah, minimal inheritance, right? Allowing the whole population to receive a minimal inheritance. Paid to all at 25 years. Like, he's really just talking about building a society that in which people are supported, in which people can just live. Yeah, basic income progress back in 2000, and this is reminding me, I'm just going to do this right now. I do have a group on Facebook that I started way back in the day, Basic Income Toronto. Basic. It's kind of a quiet group. We're not actually organizing that much on it anymore, but it is a good resource for stuff like this. Hopefully in like post-COVID, we'll start to get more organized and start to actually do stuff, because like it's yeah, here's the Piketty. Hey Kaz, how you doing? Basic income will help humans act less like humans. What's the argument there, bud? Because I think that's inverted. I think that's like, not only is that incorrect, I think that's like an inversion of what is actually true. And we've done tests. Like, we've done tests. People keep working. People pursue their own interests, right? That if anything, they pursue their own internal. Like, everyone comes into this plane of reality with a knowledge of what they're here to pursue inside of them, right? And only they can discover what it is. And the capitalist system withholds food and shelter from them unless they sell themselves to the whims of a capitalist. Whereas something like a basic income would free them to actually pursue the thing inside of themselves. And so it allows them to act more human, right? We just have such a dingy view of what it is to be human. Like, if you're not working for capitalists and selling yourself into the capitalist system, you're somehow less human in this system that destroys itself ultimately. So I don't really understand, like, that statement seems incoherent to me. Yeah, people are starting to really wake up to Bitcoin and Bitcoin generally. That, like, Bitcoin is, like, the only reason Bitcoin exists is as a, like, slush fund for billionaires to be able to trade with one another without it being tracked. Like, they can track that, like, oh, I gave money to this guy, but you don't see what it's for. You don't see what the trade entailed, right? So, and Bitcoin itself is, it requires as much electricity to keep Bitcoin going as it does to keep the a country of Argentina, right? So the country of Argentina takes as much electricity as Bitcoin. Like, this needs to go away. Like, Bitcoin, and you've got, like, what did Elon Musk do recently with Bitcoin? He bought a bunch of Bitcoin, and then he made a Twitter claim saying that he was going to start accepting Bitcoin as a currency, right? So what does that do to the value of Bitcoin, right? Like, if Tesla is going to start accepting Bitcoin as payment, Bitcoin, the value increases. It's the classic pump and dump scheme, right? So Elon Musk buys it, pumps the value of Bitcoin, dumps his own Bitcoin, and then says, oh no, we're not actually going to accept it, and so the value goes back down. So he just, like, made a couple of $1 billion by lying to everybody about what he was going to do with Bitcoin, right? Yeah, billionaires are your friends, for sure. You nailed it. I'm around dingy humans. I want them to care more. Yeah, I mean, capitalism has made us, like, we're not humans, right? We're not able to move forward in our humanity. We are just the pale artifice of capital, right? Like, we're only allowed to be what capitalists want us to be, and what capitalists want us to be is essentially robots, right? That's what they want from us. They just want us to be cogs in their stupid machine, and that creates like disposable bullshit that doesn't matter at all, right? Like and so something like a basic income increases our humanity and makes us more human. And by the way, Kaz, I'll say this right here. I don't think I've seen you around, so please subscribe. Please subscribe. I could use more people. Thanks for coming, bud. I appreciate it. Some graphics card manufacturers are starting to add features that make their products less likely to be usable for Bitcoin mining. Yeah. Like, Bitcoin mining itself is, it's abhorrent. Like, it's just taking up a ton of resources. Like, this is the thing about Bitcoin generally, cryptocurrency generally. It's like, it's just taking up a ton of resources. It doesn't actually do anything, right? This is the thing that I think people need to really get their heads around, is that, like, Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies and all this kind of stuff, they don't actually do anything except allow billionaires and millionaires to a degree, but billionaires, to do shady deals with one another, right? Like, you can see that, like, Bill Gates traded with Jeff Bezos. Like, you can see that trade occurred in Bitcoin, but you don't know what they traded. You don't know what they actually did, right? So they could be trading, like, little girls. Like, you don't know. And like, we know that Bill Gates hung out with, we know that all these billionaires were hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. We know, so you're literally creating, like, a black market currency is what you're doing with Bitcoin. And that's the only reason it should exist. Like, that's the only reason it exists at all. There's no other justification for it existing. And because it takes up as much electricity to maintain as the country of Argentina, Bitcoin should not exist. It's a total drain. It's a complete disaster. We're in the middle of a climate crisis. Get rid of Bitcoin. Like, I don't see why anyone thinks that Bitcoin should be a thing. Like, it had its little novelty, but it's a total fucking disaster. Get rid of it. You're telling me the cryptocurrency with a dog on it might be a scam? I know, Dan. Tough to believe. Tough to believe that Bitcoin is a scam. So much energy usage, and then some people will say, yeah, but the future they will be green. Yeah, maybe. Like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like, it's the co-option of the green movement by capitalism has got to be just like people will look back on capitalism as like this nefarious, demonic system that like there will, and guys, there is going to be a moment where like there is going to be like an anti-capitalist, explicitly anti-capitalist movement that arises and attains the same kind of notoriety as something like a Black Lives Matter movement, right? And the capitalists will co-opt that too. They will 100% sell you anti-capitalism. They'll 100% put that on t-shirts and their products and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, 100% be like, yeah, fuck the man, right? Like, they are the man, right? Like, capitalism is a demonic system that will absolutely sell you the rope to hang it. Like, they don't have like a moral, they don't have like a moral conscience. They don't have any, like, they only care about moral argumentation so that they can twist and distort it in order to facilitate, like the way someone like Ben Shapiro does, where it's like, oh, you're against capitalism and yet you participate in capitalism. Like that idiotic, childish way of thinking, right? Italy, migrant farm laborers take over Rome streets to demand better working conditions. Lots of really interesting stories coming out of Italy. Like the Italian dock workers refused to load and ship weapons to Israel. Lots of really interesting things happening in Italy, and part of that is that like Italy was one of those places that really got ravaged by COVID. That COVID was like completely to be fair, like, I don't want to speak ill. I don't know that much about Italian politics and all of this, but they really got blindsided by COVID because they just weren't ready at all because it was happening so quickly. And now I think that the realities of like being so poorly prepared and seeing what actually happened to to their country is really propelling Italians forward in a revolutionary spirit, which makes sense. I mean, the Italians are very spicy, right? Like when they executed their fascists, right? Like that's something I always like to remind people about the Italians. Like when push came to shove and they were able to organize and get their shit together, they literally executed their fascists in public and celebrate the fact that they executed their fascists, right? Whereas we are just going to let these guys, like somebody like George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Obama, like these guys, we're just going to, like Trump, these guys are going to die of old age. Like they're just going to die of old age. We're not going to confront them. We're not going to execute them the way that the Italians executed their fascists. We're not going to do that. Like, so I'm glad to see that there is like this revolutionary spirit that is coming about in Italy. It seems like people are seeing in Italy the reality that like we have to we do have to take to the streets, that this kind of public action is what needs to be done. We don't have an alternative, and some countries are figuring it out. By the way, this comes from International Left. International Left is great. They're reporting on all of this kind of stuff all the time. All right, I'm going to move on from this. Yeah, as long as they still get to run the machines. That's exactly right, Wigwith. Like, capitalists will, and we saw this under FDR, capitalists will eventually concede everything, right? They will give away everything, including their own personal wealth. They will, including their own power, their own this, that, or the other thing, as long as they're the ones that own the machinery. Right? As long as they're the ones that own the means of production. That's the key. And eventually they will be pushed, and as they were with FDR, to that point where they'll concede everything. And the big mistake that the communists and the socialists and the unionists of that day made was permitting the capitalists to survive. That was their mistake. That they allowed capitalism to live, because it allowed the capitalists to regroup, reform, and then push back. And what we need to do is we need to eliminate capitalism at its root, and that's to take the means of production away from the capitalists completely. Side note, the songs you played yesterday reminded me of John Moreland. Check him out. Okay, John Moreland. Oh, why did I say Morelands? John Moreland. Okay, I'm just gonna keep that there. Oh, good stuff. Okay, I'll take a look at that later. I don't necessarily want to play his stuff on the live stream because I don't know, like. JDL terrorist instigates and attacks pro-Palestinian group at protest. Media drops the ball and jumps to blaming anti-Semitism because of course. Yeah. I'm seeing that a lot. Like, Justin Trudeau released an initial statement around the Palestinian protests where he actually used the word Islamophobia. He said that anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are unacceptable. And since it's moved forward, he's dropped the Islamophobia thing. And now it's just about anti-Semitism, right? And that's true of John Tory, that's true of Doug Ford, it's true of all of our politicians, that as much as they're trying to pound on the idea that this is a both sides issue, when it comes to their statements, they only seem to really care about anti-Semitism. 19,000 new appointments over May 2-4 weekend at city clinics to be open today at 4 p.m. Cool. Amazing. There's a gun against our heads and a voice saying dance or die. It's not hypothetical to critique capitalism while It's not hypocritical to critique capitalism while participating in it. In fact, we are critiquing capitalism largely because we are forced to participate in it in order to survive. And yeah, and this kind of thing is absolutely like we're constantly told that capitalism is a voluntary system that, well, if you don't want to do that, then you go do that, right? But that's such a narrow view of capital that the market that we sell ourselves to is dominated by a small group of people in the first place. And so every job ends up being the same because you're working for this group of sociopaths, right? This group of people who are, using finite resources to create disposable items and shit like that. Stephen Riker has had enough of the Republican Party making fools out of themselves. Wow, this is unhinged. I'm literally looking at our voter registration database on my other screen right now. We can't indulge these insane lies any longer. As a party, as a state, as a country. This is as readily falsifiable as 2 + 2 = 5, if we don't call this out. Yeah, like, the Republican Party is completely unhinged, right? And ultimately, like, the capitalists, the industrialists, like the capitalists that exist in our society, they are fine with dealing with this unhinged insanity, right? That as long as the unhinged insanity isn't being directed at removing their power, right? They're completely fine with that. And as long as that unhinged insanity is focused on any other thing, like if it's focused on the capitalist class enemies, which are, well, everybody, but the people who are actually fighting against them directly, which are the Marxists and the communists, like, they're really happy with that. And if that can be focused at immigrants or foreigners, that's completely fine, right? They'll completely, I'm always reading this book right now called The Rise and Fall of, what's the name of the book? Oh my God. The Rise and Fall. It's about Hitler. Anyway, and throughout the book constantly refers to the fact that Hitler was well funded by the industrialists, by the capitalists, right? Hitler received all kinds of support. And remember, Hitler was walking around holding a book called Mein Kampf, My Struggle, where he explicitly called for the extermination of the Jews, right? So he's carrying around a book that outright, unabashedly calls for the extermination of the Jews in it, and industrialists are just like, have money, be a politician, right? Because fundamentally they understand that someone like Hitler is going to protect capital, right? And ultimately, like, the liberals just lay down and let Hitler take power. And the same thing is going to happen here, right? The liberals are going to lay down and they're just going to let Hitler take power. They're just going to let some ridiculous fascist take power because the other option will be someone like Bernie Sanders, right? Someone like Bernie Sanders who's actually going to confront or attack capital. And when push comes to shove, liberals will always lay down in those circumstances. They will always acquiesce to capital. Senior advisor to Annemie Paul. Annemie Paul is the leader of the Green Party currently. Rages against anti-apartheid statements and vows to flood Green Party with racist Zionists. Wow, here is Annemie Paul's chief of staff going after MPs who speak out for Gaza and calling Zionism a settler colonial ideology to its core, an indigenous liberation movement. Oof, really? This is a bit fuzzy. I've never experienced more anti-Semitism and Jew hatred from people I thought I knew well than I did this week. The progressives and climate communities have displayed at some points this week overt and virulent anti-Jewish behavior, appalling anti-Semitism and discrimination from a range of political actors, beginning with Jagmeet Singh and Dimitri Lascaris and many Liberal, NDP, and sadly Green MPs. We will not accept an apology after you realize what you've done. We will work to defeat you and bring in progressive climate champions who are Antifa and pro-LGBT and pro-indigenous sovereignty and Zionists. I mean, at this stage in the game, like, defending Zionists is defending Nazis. Like, it really is. There's no difference. Again, it is very much worth stating that there is a distinction to be made constantly between Zionists and Jews, that Nazis are not Germans, Zionists are not Jews. Very, very cleanly stated. That's as clean as it needs to be. And defending Zionists, in my view, at this stage, is the same as defending Nazis. So, and the fact that this person is the chief of staff, right? That's the end of my support for the Green Party. I don't think it's defensible. Like, even something like even the conservatives aren't coming out and making statements like this, right? Even the conservatives are not coming out and making statements like this, and saying that we need to get more Zionists in the party, right? Like, even the conservatives. So this, in my view, puts the Green Party on the far right of the conversation now, like, and that's how they need to be treated. That they're and a statement like this might even make them further to the right than the conservatives themselves. Although that's debatable. But like on this issue especially, like there's this great German phrase where if there are 9 people sitting at a table and a known Nazi comes and sits down at the table and no one says anything, there are 10 Nazis sitting at a table. Same logic works here. If a known Zionist comes into your group and they are unopposed, then whoever is just not opposing them is also on side, is also a Zionist. Don't go to work, they can't fire us all. The Area 51 thing, but someone makes an event called Don't Go to Work, they can't fire all of us, and then we trick everyone into a general strike by calling it a meme. I really like that. I really like that. Copy link. We're just gonna quickly. Does that work? No, it doesn't. Okay. I'll do this later. That's fine. Lost bird. If you're in Scarborough or North York, see this bird. I don't know. It's more likely that the bird will come back, right? Like, don't you think? Like, if the bird was being well treated, don't you think that like the weather just got? It's like what happened here in Toronto. There was the what's the name of that? What's the name of that animal? It's like a nice. It's like a big animal, but it's very peaceful, and it's very it's like a chinchilla. It's not a chinchilla. Oh, this is gonna kill me. Anyway, there were these animals at the Toronto Zoo, and they got out because the weather got nice, and there was this big search for them, and nobody could find them. No, that's not it. That's not it, John. Anyway, and it's not a bird. It's like a mammal. Anyway. Capybara. Dan gets it right. Ding, ding, ding. Capybara. Good. Thanks, Dan. So the capybaras get out, right? And the capybara, and like, let's be really clear about what we're looking at here, right? Capybara, right? Capybaras are like well known as being like just these really lovely, really nice creatures, right? They look so chill, and they're like really vegetarian. They just kind of go around and they hang out with other animals, right? They're renowned for like other animals hanging out with them. They befriend everything, including like alligators. Like they hang out with all animals. They're just like super peaceful, and so the Toronto City Zoo has some of these, and they escape right in the spring, right as things are getting nice. And there's this big search that goes for them. Nobody can find them. And then once the weather starts to go back into winter, they come back to the zoo. And they're just like, hey, what's up? The capybaras have it figured out, right? They just like live and are like, it's nice. I'm going outside. I don't need to be here. And just the fact that they managed to escape, like, good for them. And so I think the same story here with this bird here. Probably was just like, oh, it's getting nice. I'll see you later, right? It's probably like in a tree nearby, right? Just chilling out, being a bird, right? It's a bird. It knows exactly where it is. And once it gets cold again, it'll just be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go back to that guy who keeps me safe. So I bet you that's the story here. It's like when I was in Cuba, we went to like a dolphin show. And I have been to Marineland, and Marineland is a horror show. Like, Marineland should be shut down. Like, it is a crime against nature what they are doing in Marineland. And so I was expecting something similar in Cuba, and it immediately, all of my fears went away, because in Cuba, the pens that they have for the dolphins, like, if this is the water, right, the pen is right here, right? Like, literally, the pen ends, like, right here. And we're talking about dolphins that can, like, jump into the sky. Like, they're just, like, way above and all this. So if they're being mistreated or if things are going badly for them, they'll leave. And in fact, there was actually a sea lion. Like, on all their advertisements, they're like, come see the dolphins, come see the sea lion. And right away when we get there, they said to us, the sea lion isn't here, he just left. He'll be back, we don't know when, but he just left. And I'm like, that is acceptable. I'm fine with this idea of, like, dolphins being around and being like, yeah, sure, I'll do tricks for you. And it was so funny because even during the show, one of the dolphins was like, yeah, it's showtime, let's go. And the other dolphin was just like, bro, I am not feeling it today. So I'm going to do this flip, but it's not gonna be the greatest flip. And the trainers were just like, yeah, he's just feeling tired today, guys. That's, what do you do? And I'm like, that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Like, we should be communicating with these creatures, and we should be making sure that, like, they can't, like, they're not trapped, right? Like, in Marineland, these creatures are fucking trapped. Like, you just see, like, the killer whale or the orca just, like, listlessly floating alone in this, like, pool. It's horrible. Like, it's horrible. Like, these animals should be, yeah, if not released, that they should be living in better conditions than this. It's brutal, but we're willing to treat each other that way, so I don't see why we shouldn't treat the rest of everything, or why we don't treat everything that way. This sub without this guy. Yeah, this guy's the one. This guy's the fellow who's been doing daily updates about COVID, which we'll encounter. Existential Comics, man. This crew is brilliant. America is a country where billionaires find it cheaper to finance elections to get people in who will cut their taxes than to just pay the taxes. This is called democracy, apparently. This speaks to your statement, Wigwith. Don't underestimate meme power to change the world. Yeah, like, memes are propaganda, right? And I'm not using propaganda in this sense as a dingy thing. Like, propaganda exists on all sides. And, like, a statement like this, just like a clear statement like this, dismantles, like, entire generations of ideology, right? That, like, the capitalists spend billions and billions of dollars to propagandize people, and it's just like stuff like this you could just, like, hold in front of people, and they get confronted with the truth of that statement, and you can see how it doesn't compute in people's brains and how it becomes difficult for them to kind of understand or comprehend what's happening. I hope you guys are all doing really well out there, man. Like, I just feel like I want to have a moment where I'm just like, I hope you're all doing good. I hope life isn't treating you too badly. I hope you're enjoying your job, or if you're unemployed, that you're not falling into despair. I know for me, like, this last weekend, I had, like, a big plunge into despair, and really getting to question about, like, what am I doing with this live stream? What am I doing with this channel? What am I doing generally? It would be easier to just turn it all off and just ignore everything and just push it all out. And I know that, so I hope that you guys are able to find some kind of method to deal with your own personal mental health and deal with the nonsense that we're all facing, right? Like, and it's full-throated nonsense. Like, I want to believe it's going to get better. I do. I want to believe it's going to get better, and the only way that we can believe or that we can move it to get better is if we all talk to one another, and hopefully get things figured out. Aaron O'Toole says conservatives' rejection of climate change resolution was a distraction. What are you talking about, Aaron O'Toole? Conservative leader recently vote party blah 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 was a disappointment that distracted from the party's larger plan. Oh yeah, okay. That's okay. Sorry, I went on like a real roller coaster here. In wide range, because I was like, oh, he's an idiot. And then he's like, oh no, he's being more moderate. And then now I'm back on, no, he's an idiot. Like, weren't rejecting the actual science of climate change, but rather a resolution that was hard to understand. It was not hard to if that resolution was hard to understand, then the Conservatives should not be the ruling party in Canada. Because if they think that's hard to understand, they're going to think that everything is hard to understand, which I think is actually generally true of the Conservatives. I generally think that Conservatives don't understand anything, and are really proud of it. They're really proud that they don't understand anything. My pooper is my reason every day to get dressed and out of bed. Oh, F off, idiot. Someone gave him shit. How you doing, Ruth? You doing okay there today? I feel like are you shouting at passersby? Yeah, it was not the outcome I would have liked coming out of the convention floor for sure. Yeah. And poor O'Toole is in like such a tough situation, right? Like his largest hurdle is his own base, right? And like I won't be too surprised to see that as people get to know O'Toole more and more, that they come to see him as a decent conservative leader. He's got like the statesmanliness. He's got a good crew around him. He's doing all the right things. He's saying all the right stuff. He's certainly on the conservative side of the argument, but he seems that he's going to be able to break out of that Andrew Scheer kind of boring, pasty whiteness and get more into that kind of statesman leadership position. The trouble is that Canadians know that the conservative base is insane. Just like the Conservatives are just insane. That they deny the existence of climate change. They're outright fascists in their ranks. Like someone like Aaron O'Toole goes on to like Rebel Media and like all of these things, and like so it doesn't matter how good the leader looks. We all know it's manufactured because the Conservatives are insane, right? Thanks, Ruth. You always brighten my day, Ruth. I gotta tell you, you always brighten my day. Every time you come in here and you start commenting, it's a good time. It's a good time. My dog is over at my ex's right now. We pass him back and forth, and so it's really freed up a lot of time for me to be able to focus on this stuff. But you know, after a couple of days of being like, okay, I'm free and I can do what I want. After a couple of days, I get to be like, where's my little guy? Where's my little guy? So some days you want to punch an idiot in their face. Yeah, I respect that position. I respect that. Hopefully, I'll never be that idiot, Ruth. Hopefully, I'll never be that idiot. I don't need to get punched in the face.
Food delivery coming.
We have food that can deliver itself to your house, but still have people starving in the streets. Oh, holy cow! If this isn't like capitalism writ large, eh? Like if this doesn't, this clip right here, we're gonna replay this. This might as well be called capitalism right here.
Food delivery coming.
Just like a robot going right by. Wow. That's brutal. Like, that's brutal. So we can afford the existence of this robot, but we can't afford to help somebody not live on the street. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. GOP, no abortion. Us. Yikes. Okay then, birth control? No! Wait, so maternity care? LOL, FU. Childcare? Assault rifles! Yeah. Yeah. We're like completely unhinged. Like the GOP is just like completely unhinged right now. And it makes sense. Like they're detached from like if you don't have an actual critique of capitalism, like if you actually think that the people who are doing the critique of capitalism are evil, which is your Marxists, like instead of actually listening to your Marxists, right? If you actually don't have a critique of capitalism, then there's all kinds of crazy places you can end up, right? You can, as long as you pretend like what you're doing is good. Rashida Tlaib confronts Biden for ethnic cleansing. How long is this video? 7 minutes? Nah. Well, I'm glad to see people are doing it. Like, the United States is completely complicit in what's going on there. Should be confronted. Should be confronted every single day.
I'm going here.
3,185 sharks. Canada's largest ever fin forfeiture leads to $60,000 fine for BC company. Jesus Christ. Okay, I don't even want to talk about that. That's some horror show shit, dude. Like, that's some horror show shit. Opioid overdose deaths up 75% during COVID-19 pandemic, news report. Yeah. I mean, the opioid crisis is yet another failure of the capitalist model and the capitalist system, right? Like, we're just going to dope everybody up, right? Forget about feeling like a human being. Forget about pulling the thread of what your anxiety or depression or your angst or your anger is revealing, right? Forget about genuinely having a genuine conversation about, like, well, why do you feel this way? Like, what is causing this? And what can be done about that in large systemic ways. Instead of that, we'll just dope you up. And if your answer to crisis, and capitalism itself is a crisis, if your response to crisis is to just dope up, like, yeah, when you hit like a nature-based crisis that capitalism is failing to address, because capitalism can't address it, because that's not how capitalism works, then yeah, you're going to see like big spikes in opioid death. And that's a problem I actually think is just going to get worse, right? Like, more and more people are just going to opt out. Like, just check out of life generally. Because, like, if you think COVID is bad, wait for climate change, man. Like, wait for climate change. Yeah, it's pharma's fault along with the doctors. They paid and they're all free. Like, they erected a system where both the doctors as well as the pharmaceutical companies have every incentive to just dope people up, right? They're making lots of money doing this. Like, every single one of those deaths is an increase in their portfolio. And that's just the reality. The province is allowing non-urgent and non-emergency surgeries to resume. Good news. Good news. And that's because, and we'll see it here, but cases are down. They're sub 2,000 now, so things are getting a little less heightened. PBO reports find that the NDP plan to slash student debt would cost $4 billion. Great. That's only the amount of money that the United States gives to Israel, right? That's fine. Cost $4 billion? That's completely fine. Like, we know that our corporations are hoarding at least $650 billion. Like, $4 billion? That's nothing, right? And we shouldn't slash student debt. We should eliminate it. We should structurally eliminate it. It should be free to go to university. Like, I had to bankrupt out of my student loan debt because I would never be able to pay it off. And then I know I have like a lawyer buddy who he just now has paid his student debt off. And he's like a Bay Street lawyer, and he's just now paying his student debt off. And that's like 20 years. It's unreasonable. It's absurd. Like, anybody who supports this idea that we should maintain the system of student debt, it's just, they're not your friend. You got to get rid of them. Working for 5 days and resting for 2 is the biggest ever scam that's been normalized. Yeah. It should be exactly the opposite. Like, we should rest, not rest, but we should have leisure time. Like, people should have time to themselves to do what they think is correct for the communities that they live in, because that's what people actually do when they're given their own time. Our Minister of Education, everyone. Nothing is more important than returning kids to school safely, because it is crucial for their development, mental health, and future successes. Safe schools. Ontario considers move to make remote learning permanent. Yeah, this is something I'm deeply concerned about. I'm deeply concerned about how it's a very capitalist solution. Just jam a kid in front of a screen, right? And inundate them with your nonsense that they'll immediately forget and they won't give a crap about, right? And that way you don't need to pay for teachers, you don't need to pay for people to actually help them, you don't need to pay for resources, all that kind of stuff. You can defer all of that onto the parents. You can begin the process of privatization, right? Which is what the Conservatives always want to do, is they always want to privatize. Ruth, you're spicy today, man. You're spicy. Are you sitting on your patio with like a mimosa or something? Have you had a couple today, Ruth? Jeez. You're cut up, man. You kill me, Ruth. 3-day pop-up clinic for people 12 plus. That's just good to know. Yeah. I feel like the vaccination process is going fairly well. I mean, to the level that it'll be effective. We'll see. We'll see about that. Israeli employers threaten to fire Arab workers participating in general strike. I mean, it can't be that explicit, can it? Arab workers across the country were told not to participate in Arab sector's general strike on Tuesday, with some even being unlawfully dismissed. The strike was initiated by Arab High Follow-Up Committee for Israel's Support Aggressions at the At Rambam Healthcare Campus, management sent letters to their Arab employees asking them not to take part in the strike. Oh my goodness. It's so weird to me that there are laws surrounding what is or is not a legal strike. Like, what are you talking about? People have the right to organize and strike. Like, and they don't need to check some, like, of course the capitalist system is going to say that it's illegal for you to strike. Like, of course it's going to. That only fuels their ability to make everything worse. Yeah, this generation of kids will be behind in everything, and then cons will cut more education funds. I mean, I have big opinions on our education system generally, right? Like, people think that these kids are going to be like way behind in ways, and I just don't think that's the case. Like, our education system's not that effective at educating people, right? Like, I generally think that our education system loses its veracity around grade 9, right? That, like, once kids know how to read and write and do math, the education system really just ends up kind of being a babysitter's club, right? It just ends up being a place to make sure the kids are, and so they can't go out and cause any problems or cause a rabble or anything like this while their parents go off to work, right? Like, that's generally, in my view, what the education system is about past grade 9. Like, grade 9, 10, 11, 12, you've got 4 years, right? And these are the 4 years where kids are like developing and getting into puberty, right? Which we ignore and don't pay any attention to and don't help anybody out with. And what do we do over that 4 years that's valuable for these kids? Like, jam their heads full of facts and figures that they'll forget? Like, make them read books that'll make them despise reading? Make them read these books in a manner that makes them like completely hate anything to do with learning about their own history or anything. Like, anybody who gets out of our education system and actually still has like a joy of reading or a joy of learning, that exists in spite of the education system, not because of it. Our education system is specifically structured to destroy the love of learning and to destroy the love of reading. That we and we do everything we can to ensure that that's the case. And if we wanted kids to actually learn to love learning and reading and all of this kind of stuff, we would allow them to pursue their own projects, because everybody has inside of them this desire to do something, right? Everybody has that, and our school system should be set up to say to these kids, right when they're getting into that kind of puberty phase, right when they're getting into that phase where they have their quote-unquote rebellious phase, i.e. they're looking around them and seeing that there's this failed system that doesn't work and seems completely pointless. And so they're saying, wait, how is this anything but a waste of my time? And they're right to say that, because it is. It's a total waste of everybody's time, including the teachers, including the administrators, everybody. It's a complete waste of everybody's time. And instead of erecting a system that says, okay, what is it that you think you are here to do? Because everybody has that in them, and only they know the answer to that question. And then when they come out with the response of like, I think I'm here to do this, or this is what I'd like to pursue, like when I was growing up, if you said something like, I think I'm here to do this, well, the entire school system was structured to destroy that, right? That no, that's not a thing. You shouldn't focus on that. That's not part of the curriculum. That's not part of the system. That where it should be exactly the inverse. If a kid says, I think I'm here to do this, and it doesn't matter what this is in this situation, right? Like, we want it to be like, I think I'm here to be a doctor, but like some kids genuinely are here to skateboard. Like, sorry, like I'm sorry that the quantum energy that created you doesn't have hold to the same values that you do, right? And like, so if a kid says like, I think I'm here to skateboard, then our school system should go, okay, bud, then get the fuck out there and do it. Let's see it. Let's see it. And like, we're not interested in that at all. Like, what we're interested in is we're interested in preparing kids for a life of servitude under capitalism. That's what our education system does. That's what it's for. Is that it takes kids and even the kids who like are, what they want to do is they want to run around the school all day. That's what they want to do. They want to run and run and run and run and run and run and run. And then we take those kids, and instead of allowing them to do that, we sit them in a little cubicle, right? A little desk, and we say, now you got to pay attention to this guy drone on about like the 17th century, France, like, and I'm like making fun of history class, and I loved history. I love history. History is like one of my favorite things to look at and research and find out more about, but it's just like the idea that our school system thinks that it can create a formula to jam every single person in through, and that every single person will benefit from that, when the reality is it's the array of the type of people that exist in the world supersede that to such a degree that it's childish to think otherwise. And if a kid says, this is what I want to do, like this is what I want to focus on, we should provide every resource possible for them to follow through on that. Because if you allow a kid, like especially like a 14-year-old, right? Like a 14-year-old kid that wants to do something, well, let them do it, because when they fail, right? And they will, because that's life, baby. It's not so devastating, is it? Like a 14-year-old failing at something, that whole mantra of like you can stand up, bootstraps and get up and try again, and all kind of stuff. You say it to a 14-year-old, and they're gonna be like, yeah, you know what? Let's go. I have the energy, right? I have the wherewithal. I'm made of rubber. I can like bounce my head off the sidewalk and stand back up, and everything's fine, right? Like, but you say that to like you wait until like kids are out of university, right, before you give them any kind of freedom to pursue anything. And even then they need to justify any project or idea to a capitalist system like a bank, right? And so by the time, and then on top of that, they're so saddled with debt that by the time they actually are in a position where they might be able to actually pursue something, it's too risky because they're 40, right? So our education system, in my view, is from grade 9 and up is a total failure, like a total failure. I don't think there's anything redeemable about it, and it needs to be reformed on a massive scale, like a massive scale. Ruth says, I wasn't into math or science. Cutting up animals was my nightmare, and my grades sucked. But the day I got out of high school, I flourished. Exactly. High school sucks. It's 4 wasted years, is what it is. It's just completely pointless. And like even our movies know that this is true, right? What's one of the general thrusts of every high school movie you've ever seen? Is that there are these assholes walking around pretending like they run the place, like the cool kids, right? And everybody's having a miserable time. Bullying is normal, right? Like, and what we're supposed to pretend as though sending kids to school socializes them. It just seems so, like, it just seems grotesque. It just seems like a joke, right? And like, and if you're a kid living in that environment, and you refuse to sort of participate in the absurdity of it, well, you get told that lots of potential, like this kid has lots of potential, but they don't want to sell themselves into a system that fails, and certainly it has nothing to do with the failure of the education system from the ground up. No, it's got everything to do with the fact that this kid is the problem, right? Yeah, you got a kid that he doesn't seem to be able to focus in class. We'll just jam Ritalin in his face, right? Just dope him up, right? And then they'll be able to sit quietly in class, because that's the requirement. The requirement isn't to structure the system so that kid can actually find out what he's here to do and find out what he's supposed to be doing in the world. No, the requirement is to sit silently and get this information jammed into your head to a degree that you can write it on a piece of paper one day and then immediately forget everything you learned, because it's pointless information in the first place. Man, our Ontario is just falling in love with this person. Enterprise value, yeah. Yeah, Trump supporters have no clue why they support him. This is a 13-minute video, so I won't play it, but it's true. Like, they've fallen into the cult of personality, right? That Donald Trump is... They're just supporting Donald Trump because he's Donald Trump. Because he's like this media figure. Yeah, another aspect of school is to learn hierarchy. Yeah, hierarchy, and to be able to, like, be industrialized, right? Like, you're just being trained, like... And let's get into, like, the more sinister aspect of it, right? Like, the kids that figure out early that just doing what they're told, right? It's about just doing what you're told. It doesn't matter that what you're told is stupid or insane or worthless or pointless. That has nothing to do with it. It's about just doing what you're told. And if you just do what you're told the best, you get the best grades, you get the best scholarships, you get to go to the best schools, where you continue to just do what you're told. And the kids who just continue doing what they're told, well, these are the kids that end up in the CIA, that end up in the FBI, that end up in the State Department, that end up working for high-level corporations, right? Because the only demand that a capitalist system has of anybody is just do what you're told. And so they've structured the entire system to reward the people who are just doing what they're told, and to weed out the people who are, like, interested in pursuing their own internal desire, right? That if you actually pay homage to the quantum signature, to the quantum force that created you, and you actually pay homage to the spirit that exists within you, that exists there in a manner that supersedes everything else, a person's own internal desire for what they think they should be pursuing in the world supersedes everything else that exists in the world, without a doubt. And the entire system is structured completely to weed people out who do that. That if you're an artist, right? Or a musician, or a skateboarder, or somebody who wants to pursue some kind of, even if you want to pursue something like industrial or capitalist, but that rests in conflict with the capitalists, you're weeded out, right? You're weeded out. And the people who succeed and thrive in our education system are the people who just do what they're told. And those people eventually move on to become, the CEOs of our society and agents for the CIA, because they're just doing what they're told. And who are they doing what they're told by? The capitalists. So the entire education system exists as a method to subserviate to capitalism. And you can see that in how the Ford administration has enacted, like they made a big hoopla about how they're enacting new curriculum to teach kids finances, right? Big complaint about the education system that people have is like, it doesn't teach us how to do our taxes or anything like this. And it's like, yeah, that's true generally, but you know what else it doesn't teach you? It doesn't teach you about the structure of the system that you live in. It doesn't teach you what capitalism looks like. It doesn't teach you how you're subserviating yourself to capital. And so when they make new curriculum to teach kids how to be financiers, it's all about how to subserviate yourself to capital. Like, it's not about how to work or it's not even about how the system actually works. Because if they teach you how the system actually works, then you can overthrow it, right? Then you can, like, can you imagine if you actually taught, like, 9th graders what capitalism actually is and what it actually looks like and what the system is actually designed to do, right? They would revolt. Of course they would revolt. They revolt immediately, because what a disgusting system, right? Like, oh, we're going to just subserviate ourselves to this class of people who don't work, who do nothing all day? No. But that's the system, and we don't teach kids, because the education system is about subserviating our society and our children to capital. It's not about teaching them anything. Justin Trudeau's plan to control the internet. Oh, this is from the Wall Street Journal, no less. A great firewall of Canada. I bet you this is Bill C-10 stuff, and I think that's just all overwrought. Like, this Bill C-10 stuff exists. Yeah, it totally is. Granting bureaucrats the power, for example, to require YouTube to silence Jordan Peterson, fine Spotify for something Joe Rogan says on a podcast, or impose an independent broadcast, blah, 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 blah. Like, you can tell where this author is coming from, because they're saying Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Sam Harris, right? Like, Mr. Cooper, right? Toronto-based media lawyer, great. Literally not what Bill C-10 is doing. Like, just literally isn't what it's doing. Like, this is the whole conversation around Bill C-10 is designed specifically as a distractionary tool, right? Like, it's completely 100% a way for the media to say, like, no, we're doing our job as the media. Look how we're doing our job as the media. We're keeping the government accountable. Look how we're keeping the government accountable by misinforming you about what this bill actually does, by misinforming you about how it's actually affecting our legal system, by spreading a hysterical conspiracy theory into the public that the liberals are attempting to censor your access to YouTube, and like while simultaneously completely ignoring the fact that, like, YouTube can do this stuff anyway. Like, YouTube could remove all that content. It can do it now, right? It can already do this stuff. Like, why are you, and like, the idea that, like, so here's the reality of this. Let's go back to this statement that he just made, right? Granting bureaucrats the power to require YouTube to silence Jordan Peterson. So that would violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And this lawyer knows that, right? That doing so would violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And that someone like Jordan Peterson, like, if the government actually did that to Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan, right? It would blow up in their faces in an enormous kind of way. It would be an enormous scandal, a huge lawsuit that would be well reported on, because it's a complete violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. the government cannot censor people. And something like Bill C-10 doesn't supersede the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And this guy knows this, but he doesn't exist to... he's existing just to stir up controversy, right? It's like how right-wingers are going around saying they're being silenced, right? Oh, they're being censored, oh my goodness. And they're doing it on these like big, like they go to Fox News and they're like going to big multimedia platforms talking about censorship. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're literally like standing in front of millions of people saying how you've been silenced. Like, what the fuck? It's so stupid. But it's not stupid, right? Like, it's specifically designed so that Canadians will feel like their media outlets are actually doing their job when they're not. They're not doing their job. They're just pretending to do their job. Like, where are all the articles about the Canada Infrastructure Bank? This is what I always say about Bill C-10. Like, oh, you're losing your mind because they're passing legislation to expand the laws that have always existed for broadcasters from television to the internet. That's what they're doing, right? That they're taking laws that have existed for television and film and radio for decades, right? Not controversial at all. And they're expanding that legislation into online sources, right? So it's actually important legislation because it's the first time we are regulating places like YouTube, the first time that we are regulating places like Facebook, right? So it's important legislation because it is regulating these big tech giants. Big surprise, nobody actually points that out, right? And instead they're creating this like, oh, it's all Orwell and it's this hysterical kind of thing, and they're doing that, and they're worried about how that's going to remove our freedoms while completely ignoring the Canada Infrastructure Bank, which is an outright overt fascist institution that exists in our society now, thanks to Justin Trudeau, right? The Canada Infrastructure Bank is literally the merger of the corporate sector and the government sector. It goes boom, it's perfect, right? It is a fascist institution that has been erected and nobody says shit about it. And so, and how do they get away with that? Well, they get away with it because they talk about nonsense like this and create a false narrative that doesn't actually exist so that people will be like, oh yeah, our media is reporting and doing a good job. No, they're fucking not. They're duping you all the way around. They're completely duping you. Because we're dupes. We're so easy to dupe. Like, we're not skeptical at all. Like, there's, like, no skepticism inside of the Canadian consciousness. Like, our government and our media can say anything, and we'll just be like, what? Oh, no! Ruth, they took away home economics or adulting in school, so kids know nothing about bills, responsibility, budgeting, cooking, and having a hard time when they get to college, have no clue about life. Cons just want to look like they give a crap so they can argue about nonsense and ignore important stuff. Yeah, that's exactly right, Ruth. And like, there was home economics in my school when I was growing up, but it was really made fun of. Like, people really made fun of it. It was, and now I'm like looking back on it, and I'm like, man, like that home economics stuff. I wish that course had been mandatory. Like, give me home economics, man. Like, give me like, how do you sew? How do you cook an omelet? Like, all these kinds of things that I had to kind of figure out on my own. And like, everybody should have, like, that shouldn't have been an elective. Like, that class should have been like how do you garden? Why does no one know how to friggin' garden? Like, that seems to me to be like absolutely key. And if only to show people how the system they live in actually works, right? Like, people should know where the stuff they're eating comes from. Like, people should know that on a deep, like, intrinsic level. Like, we should take kids, and I'm saying this, and I don't even think this is controversial, but we should take kids to these slaughterhouses. Like, they should know. Like, they should know. Like, we shouldn't fuck around. Like, people should know what these systems look like. They should have to face the reality of what it is to be alive in the world. Instead, it's all been sterilized, and there's like pork chops you can get at the grocery store, and like, no. Can the hungry go on a hunger strike? Non-violence is a piece of theater. You need an audience. What can you do when you have no audience? People have the right to resist annihilation. Yeah. This quote knocked 16 years of liberal pacifism out of me in one go. Yeah. Like that's going back to what why am I forgetting? It's a Wigwith said here that like memes can change the world. Like, yeah, a single quote can really alter your perception of the world immediately. Like, a good example for me of this happening was, it's a bit technical, but it's fine. I used to be really against escapism as a theatrical mode, right? Because my background's theater. And I used to really look at escapism and be like, the people who participated in escapism, I was just like, and I really kind of denigrate that way of looking at art and existing in arts. And then Neil Gaiman came along and said, the only people who don't want others to escape are jailers. And he said that, and I immediately was like, it was like I had erected this whole system of thought in my mind that was all based on the idea that escapism is bad. And then Neil Gaiman said, the only people who don't want others to escape are jailers. And this whole structure just went... And it can happen just like that. So memes and leftist memes and leftist propaganda are very important for that reason. And spreading around like basic quotes and stuff like this, very important. Guys took it for the chicks. Hopefully we are moving past STEM as the be-all end-all of higher learning. I fell for that, unfortunately, about how I went through university. Taught facts, but you can't teach yourself to think. And Dan, there is a movement away. Like for the last 5 years before I got let go, I was in toys. I was a toy retailer, and I saw a transition from STEM. All of the science toys would say STEM on them, and then over the last few years they started to say STEAM because they added arts, right? So STEAM became STEAM, which I thought was actually quite elegant of them to do, changing STEM to STEAM. And the argument was very clean. It was just like, look, you can teach people like the formulas and the facts and all of that kind of stuff, but if you don't have imagination, right? If you don't have imagination, then you don't know how to put any of this stuff together, and you don't know how to create something new. Right? That all of the stuff that the engineers and the architects and the scientists and everything are attempting to create began as some imagination, right? As just some dude being like, yeah, and they'll have a flip phone, or like stuff like handheld phones and handheld devices and like this sort of stuff existed in our imagination space well before they existed in any kind of real manifested object, right? And that if you attempt to remove the arts, even from scientific pursuit, if you attempt to remove the arts, then you just calcify. You just sort of like end up stagnant, which is what the capitalists want ultimately. They don't want a creative, inventive people, because if you have a creative, inventive people, you'll have a people who are creative enough to realize that we can do better than capitalism. How many toys taught kids how to code with the hope of joining an oversaturated market in two decades? Yeah. Coding toys are very popular right now, for sure. And I always would direct parents to MIT has free coding software that's designed to teach how to code on their website. You can find it right now. Scratch is the name of it, right? Like MIT coding sure. Scratch. Here you go. Start creating. There you go. And now they're gonna take you through.
You can make your own stories.
How to code, right? Move 10 steps, all this kind of stuff. And there's costumes, sounds. There's a tutorial. Yeah, tutorial gets started. I think I blazed by the starting point, so maybe I'll. There's lots here. Right? It'd be very easy for me to believe that you could sit a kid in front of this. There you go, tutorials, right? Boom. Getting started, boom. They're just going to start telling you how to do this stuff, right? Add a move block, right? And you just follow along with this. Move 10 steps, right? So these resources are here. It's just people don't know about them, right? Like people don't know they exist, and people don't. And there's a reason, right? If everybody knew about that program that existed on MIT's website, it's free, a tutorial for everybody to get involved in. Well, then they couldn't sell it to you, could they? Right? It's like yet another failure of the capitalist system. Fed's asking Canadians to take a leap of faith that Bill C-10 won't hurt free speech. It genuinely is not a leap of faith. Like, Bill C-10 does not supersede the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It just doesn't. Like, and this narrative exists explicitly to distract Canadians from issues that actually matter, like the Canada Infrastructure Bank, or the fact that we sell weapons to the Israelis. Top federal officials urges Doug Ford to listen to his health experts. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Doug Ford's not interested in listening to experts. Like, he wants money for himself. What expert is going to tell him how to make money for himself? They're not, right? Because their interest is in the populace. They're not interested in enriching Doug Ford, and so Doug Ford's not going to listen to them because that's all he cares about. Right? And it's really obvious that that's the case. Like, it's super obvious that that's the case. Yeah. Get the vaccine. Yeah. Tourism keeps Xinjiang's oldest village still dynamic. Oh, okay. It's only 2 minutes. Why not? Let's take a look at it.
Raw earth houses.
I love looking at
colorfully
other
painted
cultures
dolls
and videos that come out of
Cute
other cultures
pigs.
and things like this, especially something like
Guess
China.
where I am.
Like, China
I'm
is
Xinhua correspondent
an
Zhang
ancient
Zhongkai,
culture,
and now
right?
I'm at the
Like,
Tuyugo village in Turfan City, northwest China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The village behind me is said to be the oldest village in Xinjiang.
Look at
It is
that.
a well-preserved Uyghur stock community which has a history of more than 2,000 years.
One of the most prominent features of the village is its architecture style. Look at the
That's
houses
so
here.
cool, eh?
They are built of its raw earth. This is typical in many arid regions in Xinjiang, as the material keeps rooms cool in summer and warm in winter.
And like, look at the intricate nature.
Another
of what they've
eye-catching
done
element
like
here
the
are the
paintings and
colorfully
all of this.
painted
Like,
doors.
so
The patterns feature
Ah.
both Western and Eastern elements.
what a
Tuyugo was
what
on
a
the Asian
beautiful
Silk Road,
cultural
and
display.
even today, there's plenty
like-
of evidence of the cultural exchanges along the
And like,
trade
it
route.
really makes you see that,
Besides the
like,
village mosque,
the desire
there's
to
a
live in a
Buddhist
place that's
grotto
kind of nice
in a
is
nearby
sort of there
valley.
for us, right? Like, it's inside of us. We
Tuyugo
want it
is
to be
on
kinda
several
nice.
national
Like,
historical
these guys
and
are like
cultural
literally
village
using like
lists,
mud,
which
like,
aims
this is
to
all just like
preserve
mud.
the Uyghur
They just
ethnic
made like
minority
mud
culture.
huts and mud this and mud
The
that.
village
I bet you,
is a popular
to
destination
fix
for
these places
visitors
up,
to
they just take
explore
mud.
the Asian Silk Road,
Like, put
and a
it
tourist
into the
town
walls,
has been built
right?
to boost
Like,
local tourism.
Everybody's just doing their best with what they have, right?
我是从乌鲁木齐过来的，过来开的小车，大概有2个半小时就到这个图尤克，这是个古老的一个景区。我们这个地方呢，带着小孩过来，这个桑树嘛也
That's
除
cool.
了，
This is cool.
我们到
I'm glad we took a look at that. It's nice. It's nice. Every so often, things pop up on my feed that I'm actually like, that's nice, isn't that? I need some more tourism in my life and some more seeing. Like, it's like Anthony Bourdain, may he rest in peace, right? Like, he did this travel show, and the goal of the show is to just show people, like, you don't need to be afraid of foreigners. You don't need to be afraid of what's going on. And so now that we've done that, let's take a look at some friggin' horror show.
Is about 200 meters away from my house, was stricken by Israeli warplanes. Every home, every household is being impacted or affected and inflicted some kind of damage. Myself and others are being affected at least by some great deal of panic and horror because of the intensity of Israeli warplanes strikes.
I tell you what I miss, Ruth. I miss camping. I miss camping. Like, I miss camping like crazy.
Did he carry a rocket to fire at Israel? Israel should not have any...
I can't watch this anymore. I would go camping like 3 or 4 times a year, and I haven't been camping since the beginning of all of this, right?
It is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's been going on for too long. To add to that problem, you have moral hazard, a very significant moral hazard from the political sphere. And most of the problem starts in politics and central banks, which are part of the same political system. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. Central banks repress the amount of interest that rates are, so we don't have the real cost of money, and yet we blame the real retail banks for manipulating LIBOR. The sheer effrontery of this is quite astonishing. It's central banks that manipulate interest rates, Commissioner. And plus, underneath all this, we talk loosely, in a rather cavalier fashion, do we not, about deposit guarantees. So when banks go broke through their own incompetence and chicanery, the taxpayer picks up the tab. It's theft from the taxpayer. And until we start sending bankers, and I include central bankers and politicians, to prison for this outrage, it will continue.
So this guy, what he just said there is like accurate to a point, right? Like that because and this really speaks about how like modern monetary theory needs to become a more prominent kind of theory, because people think that money is real. They think that it's a thing, and like central banks should manipulate the currency. Central banks should have that kind of control. But the scandal isn't that central banks are doing that. The scandal is that they're excluding the populace from it, right? They're doing it on behalf of corporations and the wealthy, under the premise that what these corporations and the wealthy are doing are actually beneficial for the populace, and it isn't. Like it isn't. Like if the central banks were printing money, I shouldn't even say printing money, but they were printing money and they were distributing it amongst the actual populace for the populace to use, nobody would say boo about it, right? But the reality is that they take this, and where the scandal lies is that they're taking the money that they print and then giving it to wealthy people who then turn around and extract it from the economy and don't use it. That's where the scandal lies, right? So this guy's kind of got it, like he's sort of on the right path, but he has that kind of conservative way of looking at government, and you can tell because he says that thing that conservatives always say, like, they just print the money. If a citizen tried to print the money, they'd be arrested. And I'm like, yeah, so? Like, the government isn't a business. The government isn't an individual. The government is the government, right? The government has authority and powers that citizens and businesses do not have, right? Like, if I tried to tax my neighbor, right? Like, if I tried to levy a tax against my neighbor, I would be arrested. Like, it's a childish way of looking at the world to think that the government should act like a private citizen does in all cases. I mean, but they're the government. Like, the government is a different entity, and the reality is that, like, not only do the citizenry not realize this, but like even the people who are vying for power don't seem to understand that that's the case. So it's like this classic, like, there will come a point where there are these like machines that we've created that nobody knows how to interact with anymore, right? Like, that we just are like, we have them, but we don't know anything about them. And there's like one person who like has the manual and they know how to fix the machine, and they'll be considered like a wizard. Like, they'll just be like a technology wizard because I know how to fix the machine. Do you? Right? Like, and I feel like that's kind of how it is with us as well, that we just like, we have this big governmental machine, but we don't actually understand how it works. And so we take our kind of failed neoliberal ideologies and try to put them into a system that doesn't operate that way. And so, of course, it fails, and of course, it doesn't work. Anyway. Doug Ford expected to unveil Ontario's pandemic reopening plan Thursday. Notice that when it comes to actually, like, closing down or releasing any kind of, like, protection for the populace, it seems like it's happening on, like, this ad hoc, like, oh, no, okay, and, like, they say something and then they retract it, or they do this and then they retract it, and they don't have a plan for that. But when it comes to reopening, well, let me tell you, I got a plan for reopening, right? They had a plan to reopen the moment they closed, right? Like, and to the degree they did close. And of course it's going to backfire, right? Because they're idiots and they're not going to actually do anything correctly. Major American news referring to the entire country of Palestine as a terrorist organization to manipulate viewers. Yeah. That's been happening since the outset, like, and that's actually the official position. If you'll remember, if you were here to see Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom, you'll recall that that's the official position of Israel, that every Palestinian is part of Hamas, right? Just so we're clear, this is George Takei, just so we're clear, congressional Republicans will hold 10 investigations into Benghazi, but their leadership won't agree to even a single bipartisan commission to investigate the January 6th insurrection. Yep, sounds like someone's hiding something and kissing Trump's ass. Yeah. I mean, why would you want to investigate something that could lead to your own imprisonment, right? U.S. militarism and regime change attempts are motivated by fears of the collapse of capitalism. Yeah, to a degree. Like, one of the things that we're definitely going to see more of, what always happens at the end of failed empires is that there is a military push and a military campaign that fails embarrassingly. That the decaying empire will do things that to try to re-seize their former glory, and they will fail. And so we're going to see more of that, especially with what's going on in South America. Like, really, really expect, and to be specific about what I mean when I say what's happening in South America, there is an enormous resurgence in South America of anything to open Google Maps, eh? There's an enormous resurgence in South America of socialist ideas and specifically anti-neoliberal ideas. Like, what's going on in Colombia and Venezuela? Like, what's happening in Colombia is a freaking travesty. Where Bolivia, they had, like, deposed, like, literally created a fascist coup against the socialist leader in Bolivia, who is now back. Argentina is this, Chile is this. Socialists are taking over the structure of power, and the last holdout is in Brazil, that has been ruled by a fellow who calls himself, I forget his name offhand, but he explicitly calls himself an eco-fascist. That it's yesterday we were talking about mask off, like how eventually the United States will rule with its mask, like the mask off, and it'll just be a fascist. That's already happened in Brazil. That the leader of Brazil calls himself an eco-fascist, calls himself a fascist, and if he loses the election and a socialist comes in, then, like, all of South America is looking like it's going to be a socialist kind of state, in a socialist kind of move to the left. And specifically to get rid of these neoliberal policies and these neoliberal ways. Because neoliberalism really was born in Colombia, if I'm not mistaken, with the invasion of the Colombians and the erection of a neoliberal state under Pinochet. Is it Colombia or is it Chile? Oh no, am I embarrassing myself? Anyway, moving forward with that. And that's like the Chicago Boys, and that's Milton Friedman to a T, right? That they invaded this place, destroyed its government. Pinochet erected a neoliberal economic model that completely collapsed the entire society. And so people are now seizing power and are explicitly doing so to get rid of neoliberalism. Chile. Yeah, you're right, Dan. It's my bad. Chile, you're right. And and so as South America begins to sort of reclaim itself and put in its socialists and actually move towards the left, as it has been doing, and should Brazil also move in that way, like Brazil's most of the continent there, it's very likely that the United States will begin military campaigns here. The difference being now, though, that so take a look at look at Venezuela. Let's reclaim that. In Venezuela, like, military ranks have swelled in Venezuela, and not swelled by small margins. Like, we're talking like they used to have 1 million people in the military, now they have 4 million people in the military. Like, it's an enormous swelling of their military ranks because they're well aware that the United States wants to invade them. Like, they're well aware of that, and they've been defending against coups and economic embargoes and all kinds of ridiculous nonsense. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, bud? Thank you so much for sharing those links with me on Twitter. I wasn't able to get down there. I injured myself last night. I did a workout, and I actually literally injured my hip, and so I wasn't able to make it out there. But there's lots of good news going around about that Lamport Stadium clearing, and so I'm going to be talking about that on tomorrow's video. And I'm still deciding whether or not it's going to be a walk and talk or whether or not it's going to be a more like showing like the actual footage. But maybe it'll be a blending of that. We'll see. And so yeah, anyway, so what I was saying before this is that like, as the United States empire decays, it's very likely that it's going to try to do as it's always done in South America, which is invade and take out its leadership. But now, because they don't necessarily have the troop support that they have had in the past, it's going to fail. They're not going to be successful, and it's going to embarrass them. And the rest of the world is going to see them do it and be like, oh, you guys are really weak, actually. Like, for all your technology and for all your, like, high-level weapons of war and for the level of destruction that you can bring, you can't actually take control of anything. You're just like this rogue terrorist state that we all kind of have to deal with. And similar things are going to happen in China, right? Like, America is going to funnel troops, as they already are doing, through Afghanistan in order to try and get into the Belt and Road Initiative and try to disrupt it, and they won't be successful, right? The Chinese military is like very large and well funded, and isn't going to tolerate that kind of behavior. So the American empire is going to embarrass itself in big ways on the world stage. I mean, if you're not convinced with what they're doing in Israel, that they're like this rogue state that needs to be treated as such, I just don't know what's going to convince you. But anyhow, yeah, you can trust people to give them cash. Like, yeah, people are gonna buy food and shelter first, right? And so what if they spend it on some drugs? Like, that's what I would spend my money on. Like, oh no, I'm alleviating my my existential dread for an evening. Like, yeah, we're so childish when it comes to this kind of stuff. We're so childish when it comes to this stuff. Oh, hey, this is worth. Is this good politic guy. I've been noticing this guy more and more. Good for him for doing this. Let's take a look
So
at this.
in the wake of Joe Biden's abysmal and intentional failure to pass the federal $15 minimum wage, the workers across the United States are having to go out and take the fight directly to their corporations and management themselves. And so as part of this, McDonald's, which has been waging the fight for 15 for literally years now, is starting to go on strike. So workers across the United States in multiple cities working for McDonald's are going on strike. So I wanted to bring this to you guys, give you a little bit more information on it, and remind you not to cross the picket line as this is going on, to stand in solidarity with the workers who are fighting for living wages and a union. And we're going to start off here with a Bernie Sanders hype video. His team is usually pretty good at making these, so let's just go ahead and get a little bit more context around the situation.
McDonald's workers will strike and rally in 15 cities today across the nation,
demanding a minimum wage of $15 an hour.
Strike is happening a day before the company's annual shareholder meeting.
Last year, McDonald's had a net income of $4.7 billion.
Workers say a $15 an hour wage.
So I love using numbers as reference, right? So like they just said McDonald's income was $4.7 billion, okay? So that is about a little bit more than the amount that the United States is giving to the state of Israel, right? It's really worth pointing that out, that like that's the amount of money that we are giving the state of Israel to inflict on the Palestinians, is the amount of money that the entire industry of McDonald's, the entire business of McDonald's earns. So it's like we're like all of their earnings and just funnel that directly into the state of Israel. I love doing that with Mike Bloomberg. Like Mike Bloomberg's electoral campaign in the last Democratic primary election, he spent $500 million, right? So I love using that number as a reference. So somebody says like, oh, that's going to cost $500 million. There's so much money. I'm like, nah, it's not. That's just one Mike Bloomberg presidential campaign run. It's not that much money.
Would solve a nationwide hiring crunch. They've been fighting for the increase for several years now.
We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. People should not have to work for starvation wages. I have been on the picket lines all over this country with fast food workers and others who say we're not making it on $8 or $9 an hour. Raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Today we say as loudly and clearly as we can through McDonald's, pay your workers a living wage and negotiate with a union.
I mean, if you follow this channel at all, I just think fighting for $15 is like asking for crumbs. Like it's such a, it's not only like it's such a meager ask. Right, $15 is like that's even below what the minimum wage would be if it had kept with productivity. If the minimum wage had stuck with productivity, the minimum wage would be like $23 an hour, right? And the idea that people are just like, please, sir, may I please just have $15, please, or that they're getting out on the streets and they're like waving a flag and they're like chanting for $15. It's like that's how weak the left has become in this conversation. That like. We should be at least asking for the bare minimum. We're not, $15 isn't the bare minimum, right? The bare minimum would be like $23 an hour, right? That's the actual bare minimum. $15 an hour it just kind of flows into what is a capitalist strategy, which is force people to fight, to organize on single issues and entrench so much, even if what they're asking for is reasonable, not even that big an ask, because you need to show that you're willing to go to the mat every single time, so that it'll make them less likely to actually organize on more reasonable lines. Like we should you guys know me, like you know what my position is. We should be organizing saying get rid of these capitalists. Why are we even negotiating with these guys? Why is there even a negotiation with these capitalists? We should be dictating terms to them, and they should be the ones that are saying, yes, I see what you're saying, yes. Because they do nothing. All they have is hereditary wealth. They make no decisions. They aren't important, right? If they were removed from the situation, the society would be better, right? Our society would be better off without these capitalists in the first place. And yet, for some reason, we're acquiescing in the negotiation that they have any power or authority in the first place. No, fuck that. These guys are losers. They should be chased out of the conversation. We should stop negotiating with them. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Yeah, McDonald's workers striking for a $15 minimum wage. Good for them. I mean, good for them. And it is a beginning, right? It is a start. The Republican Party of the past knew they needed more voters, so they trolled for non-critical thinking previous non-voters by pandering to them, lying, and instilling fear. It worked great until that group of voters became the majority of the GOP. Yeah. Well, and like the capitalists don't care. Like the capitalists are fine to work with these guys. I've said that. I said that pretty early, so I won't go into that again. Yeah, overpopulation is a myth. We could sustainably feed, house, and clothe the world 5 times over. Overpopulation arguments ignore the elephant in the room, which is unequal distribution and consumption of resources. The earth can support billions, but not billionaires. I like that. Yeah, inflation went to 3.4%. That means people on a fixed income will have to stretch their money even more. $25 should be the minimum wage. We should just link. We should link the minimum wage to productivity. Really, we should. Like it's if we are as a society producing more, then the minimum wage should go up with it. And it's asinine that we don't. And there's a reason we don't, obviously, because capitalists are sociopaths. And going on this overpopulation, like the overpopulation myth is being spread around by fascists because they want to use overpopulation as an excuse to inflict hardship on minorities, right? That's the eco-fascist argument. Bolsonaro, that's the name of the fellow in Brazil. This is his argument, that he's like, oh, we don't have enough resources to help with everybody because of overpopulation. So we need to withhold resources from, guess who, always minority groups, in order to, chase them out. And by chase them out, I mean commit a genocide against them. And it's always argued that, oh yeah, we just don't have the resources for the population. It's like, what a horseshit argument this is. Like, yeah, we have the resources. We have more than enough. We're doing everything we can to stop that with by ignoring climate change and the looming threat of climate change. But currently we can do it. Maybe if the corporations had to choose between wages and benefits or taxes, we would get it going, or they could leave and take the companies with them. I got to tell you, Ruth, I'll say it over and over again. The threat, like, they always threaten that, oh, I'll just leave. Like, they'll just leave. I'm just like, good, I'll pack your bags. Like, I would love to say that to one of these guys. I hope in my lifetime, I genuinely hope I end up in a debate with some prominent capitalist figure who tries to use this argument against me so that I can be like, good, I'll pack your bags. Like, get out of here. Like, you're worthless. You understand that, right? Like, you're actually worthless and you're a parasite on the side of the system. Like, if I had a parasite inside of me, there was like a tapeworm inside of me, and I said, man, I need to do something to deal with the bad effects of having this tapeworm, and then the tapeworm said, oh, if you do that, I'll just leave. I'd be like, well, perfect, good. I can't wait for this parasite to leave. Like, I genuinely hope I can say this to like some high-level banker at some point. I hope I end up in a panel or a debate somewhere where I get to say this to some of these guys' faces. I don't think I'm going to read this one out loud, Ruth. But I have heard that argument in meme form. Like, just eat the rich, right? Distribute their wealth, right? Distribute their wealth. Yeah, no more overpopulation. Even a single billionaire is too many billionaires, right? Even a single billionaire is too many billionaires. Doug Ford's PC party takes a hit. This is coming from 388 Canada. Always worth paying attention to polls, especially from 388. 338 is they're doing a good job. No, not right now. Doug Ford enjoyed a crushing 18-point lead over its rivals. This week, however, Main Street measures that PC has shed some notable support. And Ontario Liberals and NDP gaining ground. Are you going to actually show me? Yeah, there we go. Yep, this is really, really bad news for the Conservatives, right? Because here in Ontario, the threshold really is 30%. If you can hit 30% support in Ontario, you can get a majority government, right? And so being sub 30%, especially if you're the incumbent, is really, really bad news. Glad to see that the NDP are the ones that are finally the ones that are gaining the ground. It's so idiotic to me that the Liberals who, like, they have Steve Del Duca, right? But he doesn't have a seat. He's not in the House of Parliament. He's a complete unknown. He might as well be an empty chair, right? And he still has like 22% support. It's staggering to me. Like, who are the people who are supporting these Liberals? Like, I shouldn't say that because it's always the same thing in politics. About 15 to 20% support for every political party is just someone saying, I vote Conservative, I've always voted Conservative, and I'll always vote Conservative. And they will. And it doesn't matter what happens in the party. It doesn't matter what the party says or actually does. Like, I vote Conservative because I'm a Conservative and I'm voting Conservative, and that's the way it is. Right? And I think that's also true of Liberal, and I think it's become true of NDP as well. I think that it didn't used to be such the case for the NDP, but now I do think they have about 15% support. That is, I'm NDP and I'll vote NDP and I'm always NDP. And really, in my view, this is just going to come down to whether or not the NDP can actually run a campaign. They're yet to actually successfully run a campaign post Jack Layton. Like, Jack Layton was running pretty decent campaigns, and he was making good ground. And like the Orange Wave happened under Jack Layton, and so Jack Layton knew how to run some campaigns. And Jack Layton's campaigns were more like they captured like an epicness, like, we're gonna move together as Canadians, with like the swelling music and like the NDP, right? They had that kind of tone about them, and since Layton died, the NDP really have gone back to, we're so kicky and cute. Yeah, look how, and oh yeah, we're the third option. Yeah, vote for us. We're so kicky and fun. And Mulcair coming out being like, hi, I'm Tom Mulcair. And so the NDP need to, like, literally, and any NDP people, if you ever actually see this, hire me to be your political consultant, because your campaign strategists suck. They suck. Like, they are not good at what they do, right? They're not good at capturing the energy of the populace. They're not good at galvanizing that energy and then speaking it back to the populace. That's how you win an election. You take the energy that the populace is feeling, right? You galvanize it, create a campaign around that, and you speak it back to them. And if you have a whole bunch of people who are pissed off, anxious, depressed, angry, who want to, like, destroy the centers of power, and you start going, tee-hee, look at us, we're the NDP, ting. Or if you start trying to, like, show how intellectual you are, if you speak like, and what they're doing is unacceptable, we're just going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And what's going to happen, and it's going to be a complete embarrassment when it happens, is that Steve Del Duca and the Liberals, who do understand how to run campaigns, who do understand how to speak to Ontarians, are going to come out and they're going to say, this guy was a failure, he was a total fuck-up, you should vote for us because we're actually going to run this place with competence, because he's a dumbass. And everybody's going to go like, yeah, that's right, he is a dumbass, and we're going to vote for them, right? Whereas the NDP are going to come out and be like, the Conservatives have been unacceptable in the way that they have been acting in the province, and we, as the NDP, will take Ontario in the direction that we feel it needs to go. And they're literally going to alienate the Buck-a-Beer crowd, right? This is what I'm talking about, right? People voted Conservative when Doug Ford was just saying, for the people, low hydro, Buck-a-Beer. For the people, low hydro, Buck-a-Beer. For the people, low hydro, Buck-a-Beer. And they voted for him, right? Clear messaging, good slogans, right? Really reductive, didn't talk down to them, galvanized their emotional feelings on things like hydro and low alcohol prices, right? That's all you have to do. And the NDP instead are going to come out and be like, oh, well, we here at the NDP believe that there is a larger issue that needs to be identified here with charts and graphs. And like they're going to try to convince people through rational argument that a vote for the NDP is the right decision. That's not how people operate. It's not how people operate. People operate from here. They operate from their guts, right? You got to hit them in the guts, pull out the 5-word slogan they want to hear, Buck-a-Beer, for the people, low hydro, right? Like you got to find those slogans and you got to shove them in their faces so that they can go like, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Right? And the Liberals are going to do that. The Liberals are going to do that. They're going to say things like these guys are losers, right? These guys are losers, right? Very simple, clean slogan that everybody's going to go like, that's right. They are losers. What a bunch of losers these Conservatives are, right? While the NDP are sitting there being like, the way that Doug Ford has acted is completely unacceptable. That's not a fucking nobody's going to attach to that. Like, it's nothing. So it's going to be heartbreaking watching the NDP shoot themselves in the ass again, right? The way that they always have and always will, because they refuse to acknowledge what politics and what campaigning actually is, right? They think that they can argue and debate and rationalize their way to victory, when the reality is that, like, no, you need to literally, like, just, it's like they're in a fist fight and they think that they can talk the other guy down. You're in a fist fight. Win by fighting. Hit that guy. Anyway, there's my daily fuck the NDP's campaign strategy rant. And they're going to do it again. They're going to fail again, because that's the NDP way. Still, I'll probably vote NDP, just to be completely... I don't see Jamie wearing a vest. I hope he carries an AR-17. No, Ruth. Ruth, you're spicy today, Ruth. No. Can you imagine? Oh, wow. Yeah, speaking of galvanizing the spirit of the day, jeez Louise. Some hospitals will be allowed to resume non-urgent procedures. Oh yeah, we've already touched on this. Good. Like, good. I'm glad that things have kind of calmed down enough in the ICUs that we can actually do that. Eglinton Crosstown LRT facing another delay. A heartbreaking development for local businesses. Oh, come on. Bit overwrought, if you ask me. The LRT has been going on for years and years. Did anybody ever see that TTC campaign where they did, where it was like, we're all just growing, like it's we're in a transition, where they had all these like kind of awkward teenagers talking? That was good. That was a great campaign. Just like, good things are coming, but we're in this awkward transition. Because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Here, you know what? I'm going to see if I can find it. TTC campaign, teenagers. Oh, come on. Oh, I should be looking on YouTube for this. Come on. This is all like, oh, it's about teenagers. It's not actually, okay. Maybe TTC ad. Maybe I'll just find it that way. maybe awkward. Oh, come on. Oh, it's embarrassing. I'm wasting everybody's time. Ah, I can't find it. Okay, I'm going to stop. But I thought that ad campaign was really great because they just had these like awkward kind of teenagers with like braces and things like this. And they were just saying like, I know we're in an awkward phase and we're all trying and we know that we'll get there. But right now, just be patient with us. And what I really loved about that, and like the NDP could learn something from that, is it acknowledges the frustration of the populace. It was such an effective ad I felt because it acknowledged the frustration of the populace. It didn't apologize for itself, and by framing it in this kind of transitionary and this natural growth of like, you know, a teenager needs to grow up and there's this sort of awkward phase. It shows it as a like this. What we're all experiencing is normal. We just need to be patient. Good things are coming. And so, and since they did that ad campaign, I think I've seen way less of this kind of stuff. So now that it's now that we've got another delay, of course, the CBC's kicking it up because they've got nothing else to talk about. You know, they could talk about the Canada Infrastructure Bank, but instead they're going to waste our times with this kind of nonsense. Chelsea Manning on the end of the American Empire. Chelsea Manning, a true hero, Definitely just going to leave this up here for now. BreadTube. Anybody wants to watch Bad Faith. Bad Faith is another really great resource. They do really good work. On this day, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, popularly known as Malcolm X, could have been 96 years old. He was assassinated at the age of 39, but his memory and teachings live on. Wow, he was only 39, eh? That's only a year older than me. Frig, dude. Unless we do something about this busing to integrate schools, my children are going to grow up in a jungle. The jungle being a racial jungle with tensions having built so high that it is going to explode at some point. You show me a Democrat and I'll show you a Dixiecrat. Malcolm X has a really powerful speech that made the rounds because of the Black Lives Matter movement called The Ballot or the Bullet. And I was glad to see that it made the rounds. Yeah, worth listening to if you can find it. The Ballot or the Bullet. That's actually maybe one of the things I could play. I'm thinking of turning Mondays into like a show day, where I take somebody else, like a documentary or something, and show it. I could do maybe a showing of Malcolm X's speech, The Ballot or the Bullet. How real estate markets across Canada has become as heated as Toronto and Vancouver. Billionaires buy up. I'm going to take a look at this and see if their response is soaring home prices, insane bidding would cancel dreams, blah, blah, blah. How did everywhere become Toronto? Okay, because billionaires are buying up the market. I'm just going to go right to the conclusion. I don't need to know any of this shit. Because billionaires are buying up the market. That's what's happening. Saw a slight opening and began to look again. No. So after months of heartache, the family... Okay, you're still talking to me about families. Okay, for fuck's sake. McLean's. You're spending like 5 hours talking about this nonsense. The reality is that billionaires have turned our housing market into a speculative market. That's what it is. And anybody who tries to tell me differently, or anybody who tries to couch it in like huge amount of language or any of this kind of stuff, are bullshitting you. Like, billionaires are buying land. They understand that the financial system they've created is going to collapse. They understand that they for the last 40 years, they've been doing everything they can to deindustrialize the nation. And they know that all of their wealth is just sort of a paper fantasy. It's not actually, they don't actually own things. And so what are they doing? They're turning around and they're buying land. Like, they don't care what's on the land, right? They just are buying land. And so what do you think that's going to do, right? If the only people who are in the market who can afford to buy are billionaires, well, it's going to jack the price right up, isn't it? And so these billionaires are buying land, and places like Maclean's get to make these long-winded articles where they're like, well, the investment group of this and the percentage of inflation and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's so total bullshit. Like, it's just a way to obfuscate what is plain and obvious and clearly in front of us. Billionaires are buying all the land. Like, the number one farmer in Canada, not in Canada, but the number one farmer globally right now is Bill Gates, right? Yeah, the well-known agricultural farmer, Bill Gates. And it's 100% because he's taking his money, his billions and billions of dollars, and he's buying land. He's just buying up all the land because he knows that the United States currency is going to collapse. He knows that the rest of the world is going to stop treating the dollar as the reserve currency, and he knows that the wealth of the American dollar, like the wealth of the American economy, is based on the financialization of the market, the parasticization of the market, that they don't create anything real or tangible. It's all just money manipulation, right? And eventually everyone's going to go, well, that's not real. That's not an actual thing. And that's all going to collapse. They know it's going to collapse. And so they're buying up as much tangible, actual resources as they can. And that's land. And when you buy up all of this tangible resource, well, guess what? Prices go up, right? And why do prices go up? Because if I'm selling and I see there's a bunch of billionaires and the billionaires are buying, well, I don't care if I can sell for $100,000 to Joe Blow Kokomo on a 20-year mortgage. This guy's going to give me $200,000 in cash right now. Like, why would I ever deal with this guy? Ever. So, and just like any article you read that doesn't like front end it, that isn't just like billionaires are buying up all the land, here's what you need to know. It's just obfuscation and bullshit, but that's Maclean's for you. Yeah, I mean, capitalism is a Ponzi scheme, right? The whole thing is a Ponzi scheme. Like, it's always just passing the buck. It's always just like trying to pretend as though there's value where there isn't, right? And like, you just can't keep moving a society that way. You just can't do that. It doesn't work. U.S. Border Agency says COVID vax not essential. Canadians could be denied entry. All right, that's just confusing. The United States is a confusing place. Yeah, Premier Doug Ford expected to unveil sector-by-sector reopening plans Thursday. No regional approach to be slowly phased in after June 2nd stay order lifted. Okay, whatever. These guys are going to do whatever they want, and we'll just eat it. Yeah, American Holocaust, the destruction of America's native people, worth looking at. Where's this coming out of? Vanderbilt? I don't know that much about Vanderbilt, so I won't talk anymore about it. But like, I will talk about this, that like, if you understand how we colonized this area and destroyed the First Nations people, like if you understand that and you've got that in your mind and you accept that that's a reality, then you completely understand what's happening here. You completely understand what's happening here. It's happening in real time. That the Zionists, with the backing of the United States, are colonizing the region and chasing the Palestinians into concentration camp or into reserves, right? Just how during the colonial period, the Canadians and the Americans, right, invaded here, started to colonize here with the support of the European powers. So during that period, we took over, displaced all the First Nations people, put them on reserves. Well, and then we turned around and went boink and did the exact same thing. It's the same story. It's the same stuff, and it's not complicated. Anderson Cooper is a Vanderbilt. Maybe that's why I'm skeptical. Anderson Cooper is such a weird figure to me. Like he's obviously a CIA asset, but at the same time he also does seem to have like a kind of a conscience, right? Like there are all these videos where he's supposed to be reporting on Paris Hilton, and he would protest He'd be like, I'm not reporting. Who cares? Like, why am I reporting on Paris Hilton? This is CNN, right? Like, why am I reporting on Paris Hilton? And then, of course, he acquiesces because he knows if he doesn't do it, he loses his position. So he does seem to have, like, a conscience. And I've seen him, like, talk to, like, Cornel West and all this, and he seems very genuine and emotional and compassionate, right? But at the same time, it goes back to what I was saying about education earlier, right? He does what he's told. So he's gotten to a point where, you know, he's willing to kind of complain, but ultimately he does what he's told, which is what which is what the education system trains. You know, it trains people to just do what they're told. We've had 12 COVID people, 1 dead, ICUs, same thing. A camp is a reserve, just a different time. Yeah. I remember the mole. I don't remember what it was about. Yeah, I don't remember what the mole was about. Was that? Oh wait, yes I do. It was like a reality TV show. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, like why? What a weird show that was. But that was like during like the reality TV show craze that Survivor kind of created, right? They created that show Survivor, and then a bunch of shows cropped up that were like that show, and like Big Brother, and they created the show with the idea that there was one of them was, I don't remember what exactly made them the mole, but they were like working against everybody, and nobody knew what it was. Yeah, it was kind of like a game show version of Among Us. It was sort of flighty and fun in its own right, while simultaneously being like pretty creepy. West Lincoln mayor condemned for asking woman if COVID-19 shot changed her period. I'm merely trying to ask a difficult question about an uncomfortable topic. Okay. He's in hot water again. I mean, look at this guy. Well, I for this one, I want to know what the context is. I mean, I probably shouldn't be doing... Dave Billsma, who's already faced criticism in a future court appearance for participating in an anti-lockdown rally. Okay, I'm no longer on this guy's side. Sent Emily Spanton the message on Facebook on Tuesday. Good day, Emily. He said, I haven't seen your posts in a while, so I have assumed that we've been unfriended. Fair enough if true. Not my concern right now. I do think you'll give me an honest answer. You posted that you received the vaccine a while back, correct? Not a usual question to ask an acquaintance, but did you notice any change in your period? Again, it's also none of my business. I respect your personal privacy. This is weird. Why are you doing this, bro? Like, why would you just randomly send... Like, you're the mayor. You're the mayor of this town, dude. There are doctors who live in your town, who work in your town. Send them a message. Ask them this question, this weird... Why do you want to know? Like, is it just curiosity? Hold on, I gotta know. She believes that he asked the question in good faith, and it seems like he did. Weirdo that he is. Why are you asking this question? The last message they exchanged, disagreed, didn't respond to his message. I don't see anything that I could say that could turn this into a productive conversation. How is it a productive conversation? Believes in good faith. Yeah, but there's so much about his statement to be unpacked. Said he knew the question was risky, but he gave her the option of not divulging anything. Yeah, he did. Weirdo that he is. I did ask the question privately. That's true. And the fact that he asked this question privately, in a private message, does make me kind of back off of him a little bit, even though this is weird. That you could have, Dave, like you could have very easily gone to your doctor. Ruth, you're nailing it. He's hot for her and she's only a woman. But okay, but that makes it a little weirder, don't you think, Ruth? That if he's hot for her, why is he... Hey, did the COVID-19 vaccine mess with your period? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Like, Yeah, of course it's creepy for a man to ask a woman that. Like, I would ask that of a good friend, right? Like, if I had a good friend who was a female and we've known each other for a long time and we were hanging out in person and she was talking about the vaccine, I would be like, hey, whoa, I'm just curious. And you don't need to answer if you feel weird about it. Has it like messed with your cycle at all? Right? Your period or any of that kind of stuff? I would ask that of a good friend, and then she could be like, you dummy, and I'd be like, I know, I'm a dummy. Or maybe she'd answer or whatever. But like to have like an acquaintance who you've had like a back and forth with that you just randomly ask on Facebook, and like he knows that it's risky. You can see it in the way that he stated it. He like really front loaded it and then like asked the question and then really backloaded it too. So he knew that what he was doing was risky. And my question for this guy is why? Why, if you genuinely wanted to know about this information, why not ask a doctor? Ask a doctor. You're the mayor. Ask a doctor. Send a letter to a doctor. And the doctor will be like, weird that you want to know this information, bro. But at least you're asking like a doctor, and it's not like a personal kind of a thing. Yeah, I'm deeply concerned that Bylsma would engage in conversation with a resident about personal matters that are so clearly none of his concern. That is true, too. Like, he is the mayor, and she is a resident, right? Like, it is exceptionally disappointing that a statement needs to be issued on a topic of conversation that is so obviously inappropriate. These types of interactions are embarrassing. Yes, they are. They are definitely embarrassing. But boy, is this ever the story I need right now, man. Look at you. Look at you, Dave. Dave Bylsma. I'm going to tell you right now, man. I have never met any... I have met lots and lots of Daves and Davids. And every Dave I've ever met is just a piece of shit. But every David I've ever met is a really great guy. So if your name is Dave and you go by Dave, maybe consider changing it to David. Just my advice. The only stuff I know about this guy is that he has participated in an anti-lockdown protest, which already makes him like, come on, dude. And I gotta know more. He's the mayor of the Niagara Region Township, West Lincoln. Let's do it, guys. You know me, West Lincoln. Can I find it right on the map? If I go here, is it just gonna go there? There we go. So close to Hamilton, like kind of south area near Buffalo. Not a very populous place. What a dumb story this is. West Lincoln population. Yeah. Like small. This is smaller than the small town that I grew up in Manitoba. Like, this is small town. This is small. Look at that face. I wouldn't want to know his browser history. Maybe time for another mayor. Dude, I know exactly how small towns operate. I know exactly how they operate. Most of the people in that community are probably going to say, are going to say exactly what we've said. Like, oh, he's just attracted to her and he's trying to get in, and like, well, and it'll all fall back onto that boys will be boys. He's just a good old boy, and they'll just move on, right? And it won't even come up, and they won't even care. Even his official photo looks super creepy, eh? Doesn't this have a real, like, Clockwork Orange kind of feel? Aren't you looking at this guy? Not this particular picture. What's a good photo? It's the reformed photo. I'm completely reformed. Yeah. This is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. Like, look at this photo. right? Oh, it's Pinterest. It's going to cause problem. You look at this photo, you look at this photo, right? I don't know. Anyway. I'm completely reformed. Jeez Louise, man. I'm so happy. I'm so happy about this ridiculous story. Not for her. That's odd. That's really weird. Good for her for coming forward with this. That's politicians of the future, be warned, right? Like, don't do this. Like, don't do this. Like, don't randomly text women about their periods. Oh, I needed that story, dude. I needed that story. What a weird ass story. Ugh. UK increasingly confident vaccines work against coronavirus variant. Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. My concern is always that these variants are going to come in and they're going to blow everything apart. More of Abby Martin. How long is this? No, 11 minutes is too long. 11 minutes is too long. Ontario PC MPP denounces woke elementary school students. What? First of all, look at this guy. You can already tell he's a meathead, right? Like, just look at this dingleberry. Ontario PC MPP denounces woke elementary school. One of Doug Ford's MPPs railed against grade school children for trying to cancel Queen Victoria. Ontario progressive Dave Piketty took to Twitter Wednesday to defend 19th century British monarch. You can tell Press Progress is just like 19th century British monarch from woke elementary school students and their families. This week, school trustees at the Toronto District School Board will be voting on a request put forward by Queen Victoria Public Schools Student Council and a group called the Black Student Success Committee to create a school renaming committee tasked with coming up with a name that better reflects the community. Straight up normal. That's not woke. That's not anything, right? Schools and places get renamed all the time. And why is this school named after a 19th century British monarch in any case? Who cares? We have our own history. We have our own, are there no like historical figures or prominent people in our society that have come from Canada that are worth naming this school? So this has nothing to do with wokeness. Renaming schools and renaming places have happened well before the woke movement. Well before the woke movement. Yeah, right. It's woke if you're right. Well, because the right are so in the dark ages, right? They're so like asleep that even normal stuff seems woke. Like, if you want to use the analogy, right? If you want to stay within the confines of the analogy, it like, if you're in the right wing right now, you're so dead asleep that anything, like literally anything, is considered woke now. Ugh. The Black Student Success Committee was established by parents' frustration by a pattern of racist behavior at the school, including racial profiling and racist letter, which targeted several black staff members. That's quite serious. That's quite serious. I grew up in a small community where there really was only like 3 black people in the community. Like, and I'm not being hyperbolic about that. And one of them taught science and I believe math at my school. And if somebody had written a racist letter that circulated at all, my school would have like shut down over it. It would have been an enormous and like, I went to like a right-wing evangelical like conservative school, right? And if a racist letter had have circulated that had targeted him, right? That had targeted him, we would have shut the school down. right? Like we would have had a whole ensemble to address it. We would not ensemble, but an assembly to address it. It would have been a significantly big deal. So the idea that that's happening in this school, right? The Black Student Success Committee, like, absolutely. And the idea that, like, Dave's saying that, oh, this is woke culture, tells you this guy's a racist. Just hard line, full stop, we can say it. No problem whatsoever. This guy's a fucking racist. Like, no. People don't get to just circulate racist letters targeting black staff members. Like, geez Louise, dude. Like, geez, that should be taken. Like, I'm from rural Manitoba. I went to an evangelical Christian school, and if a racist letter targeting black staff circulated, we would have crushed the fuck out of that. And this guy standing up and saying that it's woke cancel culture, this guy is a piece of garbage. This guy is a piece of living trash. He should be ashamed of himself. I mean, if he's capable of feeling shame. Ugh. Brutal. I can't even look at this anymore. Ugh. From down the road, there's an entire body of scientific evidence that says vaccines are safe and effective, but this mattress makes an excellent point. Beware of C-19 vaccine. Its time bomb explode in you in 7 months. Oy vey. Yeah, mental health issues are real. Like, really. Just confirmed my Medicaid dentist lied about me needing a root canal and having any cavities. Turns out cleanings don't pay as well, so I just have to keep I just had some plaque, but psychopaths keep trying to drill holes in my healthy teeth for money. Thank you, capitalism. Holy shit. That's a huge scandal. Like, her dentist lied about needing a root canal and cavities? Fuck. That's brutal, man. That's really brutal. Imagine giving someone a root canal that you know they don't need. Like, that's not a small operation, man. Holy cow. Okay. We're getting near the end of this one. I'm going to spread something around that is sort of... I like to use the last, like, waning minutes to talk about happier, sort of more superfluous stuff. You guys should check out this. Middleditch and Schwartz. Check out Middleditch and Schwartz, man. Like, Middleditch and Schwartz is... I shouldn't have done the Netflix thing. I know that now. But Middleditch and Schwartz. This is live action. Live action. Of course it's live action. But it's improv, right? And it's long-form improv. And it's just two guys doing long-form improv, and it's brilliant. These guys are brilliant, and it was really entertaining. It was really wonderful, really genuine. Anybody out there? What's everybody watching these days? Anybody watching something that's worth taking a look at? I loved spending time with these guys. I actually watched it like twice now. I think maybe three, if I recall correctly. I just really enjoyed it, and so I just think this guy. Anything to sort of alleviate anybody's tension or any kind of thing like that. Chat's pretty quiet today, man. Chat's pretty quiet today. How many of you are in here right now? 5? Yeah. Oh, well, guys. I think, you know what? I think I'm good to close down the stream. You guys are doing really great out there. I know you are. You're doing all the right stuff for yourself. So, yeah. All right, guys. Good luck. We're going to need it.